session of the World Heritage Committee. I hope that you have enjoyed the opening ceremony live broadcast yesterday. Although we couldn't celebrate the opening of this extended session together in the face-to-face way, I'm confident that we have already been united in heart and mind to embark on this journey and make headways hand in hand. With deep gratitude for your trust in me as chairperson of the extended 44th session of the World Heritage Committee, I wish to highlight my hope once again that all of us committee members and representatives of other state parties, colleagues from the Secretariat and advisory bodies, as well as other organizations and stakeholders, work in the true spirit of multilateralism and through dialogue and cooperation to promote the value of the Convention, to forge trust and solidarity, and to make this unique extended session successful and decisive. This is really an unusual session in that we have a very tough agenda, but limited working time and adapted working methods. Hence, I'd like to remind all the participants of following strictly the time limits of interventions and requirements of the rules of procedures, so that we could keep pace with our timetable. Please also understand that we may not be able to give floor to every observer every time, but we'll try our best to let all interested parties to make their interventions and comments. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to proceed to the agenda and start with the document 2, request for observer status. Before considering the admission of observers, I'd like to give the floor to the Director of World Heritage Center, Ms. Rossler, for some general announcements. Ms. Rossler, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, allow me to recall that the World Heritage Committee at its 35th session decided that committee meetings should be live streamed over the web. Therefore, the debates of our session will be live streamed through the address which appears on the screen now. I don't see it, but I think you all have it, and which is also available on the website of the extended 44th session of the World Heritage Committee. Secondly, allow me please to indicate that UNESCO gratefully acknowledges the host country for providing interpretation in Chinese throughout the session. Please also note that thanks to the generosity of the Kingdom of Spain, interpretation will be available in Spanish for the duration of the whole and of the entire meeting. In this regard, I would like to invite the Spanish and Chinese language speakers to choose in which working language, English or French, they would like to see their interventions being reflected in the summary records of the session. Your choice should be indicated orally at the time of your first intervention. It should also be transmitted in writing to the Secretariat before the end of our working session today. Thank you very much in advance, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam. We now turn our attention to the admission of observers. The list is presented in document 2 in accordance with Article 8 of the Rules of Procedure. For your information, this is a bilingual document. I'd like to ask our dear rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed. Rapporteur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. Dear colleagues, I have now to ask you if you agree to the presence of these observers throughout the session. I see no objection. The participation of observers is agreed. I declare agenda item 2 closed. Thank you. We can now move to the review of the agenda and of the timetable of our session, items 3A and 3B. As you will surely remember, the provisional agenda of the extended 44th session was already adopted by the committee at its 14th extraordinary session, Decision 14X.com4 on 2nd November 2020. The tentative timetable was adopted by the committee at its 15th extraordinary session, Decision 15X.com3 on 29th March 2021, including a number of agenda items proposed to be adopted without debate. Those items appear with gray highlight in document 3B. There will be no presentation by the Secretariat and the advisory bodies for such items, and we will move directly to the adoption of the draft decision, during which answers to any questions could be provided by the Secretariat and the advisory bodies. I would like to invite Ms. Rossler to present the agenda and the timetable for this session as contained in documents 3A and 3B. These documents should be read in conjunction with document inf.3a.ref2, which contains the provisional list of documents of our session. Ms. Rossler, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you just have pointed out, that the agenda was already adopted in September 2020 and a timetable in March 21 by the extraordinary sessions of the committee. Now, as you see in your agenda, the items which will be adopted without debate, they are in gray highlights in your document 3B. And therefore, I encourage you that you read these documents very carefully. We will go immediately into the draft decision, and we stand ready as the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies to answer the committee members' question while examining the relevant paragraphs of the draft decisions. Please also let me recall that the practical information for the holding of this session is included in document INF1, which provides general information, but also methods of work. Now, furthermore, you have all received and seen the specific schedules that have been prepared regarding state of conservation, that means items 7A and 7B, and nominations, meaning item 8B, that will be conducted by regions. This has been proposed to accommodate the different time zones, and I think it will facilitate the active participation of all stakeholders. Please note that these timetables have been uploaded on the World Heritage Center's webpage, and we will update it as required. These specific schedules will be adapted with you, Mr. Chair, after our daily meetings, and the update will be then uploaded on our webpage. Regarding document 3B, which contains the timetable, please note that the Bureau was informed yesterday that the Fuji Declaration will be presented before the end of today's plenary meeting. And I think you will do that, Mr. Chair. The text of the declaration has been distributed to you in English and French. Please note also that a video message from the World Heritage Young Professionals Forum and the Site Managers Forum will be also presented. And I think we are all looking forward to seeing those videos. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me also recall that due to the number of items on our agenda and time constraints, Rule 22.2 of the Rules of Procedure, which grants the chairperson with the possibility to limit the allowed time to each speaker, will be applied in the circumstances which may be necessary. Time for interventions, therefore, will be limited to 3 minutes for committee members and 2 minutes for observers. In this regard, please note that a timer to gauge interventions is in place, which will blink in red whenever a speaker, and you see the timer here, whenever a speaker is exceeding the recommended time limit. Concerning the interventions by observers from civil society and NGOs, we strongly advise, if they wish to take the floor on the same topic, to hold consultations among them in order to prepare and deliver one single intervention. In order to save time as much as possible, we also appeal to you not to repeat other delegations, what they have said, or making congratulatory statements. Official statements and declarations should be transmitted to the Secretariat in writing as soon as they have been delivered in order to integrate them into the summary records of this session. Furthermore, I would like to recall again what is indicated in document INF.1, that is that for the item on nominations, after decisions for inscriptions are made by the committee, the submitting state or states concerned may be invited by the chairperson to give a speech. Regardless of the format of the intervention, submitting states will be allotted a total of 2 minutes. In the case of transboundary transnational nominations, the duration of interventions, which means speech by one or more states parties, shall also not exceed 2 minutes in total. The coordinating state for the nomination is kindly asked to coordinate in advance the order and format of interventions that will be made. Due to the reduced duration of this session and the necessity to allocate a fair amount of time to all files, the cooperation of submitting states in respecting this time requirement would be very much appreciated. Please note that timing of sessions will be strictly respected, and I need to insist on this. Please note that, as indicated in your timetable, the meeting of the Bureau will be held every morning from 11 to 11:30 a.m. as of tomorrow, which is Sunday, 18th July, with the exception of the 20th July, where we'll not have a session, and on the last day of our session, of course, on the 31st of July. Dear participants, allow me to remind you that bilateral consultations will have to be arranged by the delegations aside of the session. The Secretariat will not be able to provide assistance in this regard. However, for the meeting of working groups, or in case of the establishment of the drafting group by the chairperson, the Secretariat will facilitate the organization of meetings, which will be held in the format of a separate online meeting or online event at a different time frame than the plenary session. The Secretariat will also participate in these meetings as is deemed necessary. I would also like to recall that all the micros should be turned off when not speaking, so not to disturb the proceedings. And please note that no specific coffee breaks, or should I say tea breaks, Mr. Chair, are foreseen during our daily meetings. Mr. Chair, as it was indicated at the Bureau meeting yesterday, I also wish to remind all members of the committee that amendments to draft decisions have to be submitted well in advance before the discussion to our rapporteur, Mrs. Mirai Wozinski-Hasseltun, in writing, preferably showing the changes proposed in so-called track changes. Indeed, considering that the 44th session has an extended agenda, the rules of procedure will have to be strictly respected in order to ensure timely and smooth processing of all agenda items. Therefore, amendments to draft decisions shall be submitted by committee members by email to the rapporteur using the appropriate form. You remember in the past we had this blue form, which has been sent to all committee member delegations. Please ensure that you do not modify the form and do not add new headings. While committee members are entitled to submit an amendment at any moment until the decision is made, Oral amendments made during the examination of the item should remain as far as possible. 2 small changes to the wording in the draft decision. Furthermore, Mr. Chair, I would like to clarify that so-called co-sponsoring of amendments is not an option for World Heritage Committee sessions, in line with Rule 23.2 of the Rules of Procedures. Committee members can, however, be co-authors of an amendment with other submitting committee members. All co-authors should then always be in copy of the email exchanges, and their names should appear in the box entitled Amendments submitted by the delegation of. Alternatively, a committee member can take the floor during the plenary to express its support for a proposed amendment. The submission of substantial amendments should be made at least 24 hours before the discussion. We discussed that at the Bureau, and as reiterated by the committee in decision 15 EXT 3 and Rule 23.3 of the Rules of Procedure. This would greatly facilitate the organization of the online debates and an informed decision-making process. The Secretariat will upload the submitted proposed amendments on the web page of the meeting, which is the whole title of the web page, then /44com/documents/amendment, and will inform committee members accordingly in a timely manner. As you know, the chat box should not be used for submitting amendments, hence amendments submitted in the chat box will not be considered. Last but not least, as for all online meetings, I would like to kindly remind you to speak clearly and at a normal speaking pace when taking the floor. This will enable clear and accurate interpretation. I also wish to ask all observer delegations not to turn their camera on during the meeting and to only switch them on when taking the floor upon invitation, so that the committee members can be identified more easily from Fuji, so that we can see who are the committee members and who are the observers more easily. Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rossler, for this presentation. Any comments on the agenda item? I see none. Now let's proceed then. Oh, sorry, as Okia, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all. We thank the Director for the explanation given to us on the proceedings. I just have one question and clarification about the procedures for voting. If indeed we come towards voting, how is that going to take place and what are the provisions in place? Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Oman, please.
Thank you very much, the Chair. Only I have a problem. Our camera is not turned on from your side. Please, if the technician try to turn the camera on for us.
Okay. Any other comment?
What was the question from Omar?
Omar is the camera. Yeah, Wasila, you have the floor for the first question. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you know, this was discussed by the World Heritage Committee, and there were extensive exchanges on the procedure of voting. Now, you find all the details in your document, and I hope you have it in front of you, which is 44com/inf.1. If you go to page 12 in the English version, you see under point 10.12, the matter of voting. So the practice of this committee, as you know, for the past nearly 50 years, is that the committee takes decisions normally by consensus. However, if a vote is necessary, all information and details regarding the voting is detailed here. These arrangements have been made by and approved by the committee by correspondence on 21st of May 21, following decision 15 EXT Com.3. Now, each state party of the committee has one vote in this committee. Normally, and you remember this happened at the committee many times, voting of the committee shall be by show of hands. This is in Rule 40.1. Maybe voting can be also by roll call if there's any doubt about the results of show of hands. This is Rule 40.2, or at the request of at least 2 members of the committee, which is Rule 40.3. Roll call voting, if necessary, will be conducted in presentia at UNESCO headquarters, and my colleagues are there at UNESCO headquarters to assist you in this regard. Now, in case of a secret ballot, and this is explained in your document on page 13, once a secret ballot has been requested, and in order not to disrupt the plenary meetings and the continuation of the examination of the subsequent agenda item, the ballot will be held in the morning of the following day, so that arrangements can be made for the secret ballot and the results can be announced immediately at the resumed plenary meeting. Members of the committee have to ensure that one of their representatives in Paris is available to come to UNESCO headquarters to vote according to a schedule which will be drawn up by the Secretariat in the English alphabetical order of the member states of the World Heritage Committee. To my understanding, but I'm here in Fuji and the team is there in Paris, to my understanding, room 5, which you remember is in front of room 1 in UNESCO, will be provided by the Secretariat with a ballot box and a polling booth, and each member of the committee will be given an envelope and a ballot paper, and tellers are being decided as per usual procedures among the delegations of the committee members. And then the 2 tellers with the members of the Secretariat shall be present during the voting and counting of the ballots. And our legal advisor will be certainly also with us on this matter. And in general, the conduct of vote will be in accordance with Rule 42 of the Rules of Procedure. Sorry to be so long, but I think it was important to clarify that following the question of the delegate from Ethiopia. I hope I have answered your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wanted to know the camera with Oman is okay now?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or comments? No more. Okay, I now invite you to adopt the draft decisions 44-3A. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Rapporteur. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't received any amendments.
Okay. I therefore declare agenda item 3A closed. I now invite you to adopt the draft decision 44-3B. But before doing so, I'd like to inform you of a decision adopted during the first meeting of the Bureau yesterday. Subsequent to a request made, it was decided that the draft decisions of the 4 following SOC reports that are not opened for discussion be adopted at the opening of item 7A tomorrow on 18th July. These reports are 7A.10. Old City of Jerusalem and its walls, site proposed by Jordan. 7A.16. Hebron, Al-Halir, Old City, Old Town, Palestine. 7a.17. Palestine, land of olives and vines, cultural landscape of southern Jerusalem, Batir, Palestine. 7b.135. Birthplace of Jesus, Church of Nativity and the Pilgrimage Route, Bethlehem, Palestine. Consequently, item 7b will be opened at the same time and will remain open until all state of conservation reports on item 7b have been adopted as scheduled. Shall I take it that you all agree with the request? Okay, thank you very much. In addition, as an outcome of the first meeting, several members of the Bureau indicated that a working group on the operational guidelines would not be necessary during this session. These will be discussed later on today when we open agenda item 12. Furthermore, I wish to let the distinguished committee know that concern was also raised regarding the situation of the Africa region and the changes required to remedy it in a global and systematic manner. It was considered that such a matter could be addressed within the mandate of the next ad hoc working group that is meeting intersessionally. This will have to be discussed under agenda item 11. It was also recalled during the Bureau that item 8 that we will be opened on Saturday, 24th July, will remain open until the end of our session, and that committee members may wish to meet informally on this specific matter. Dear colleagues, with this information on the outcomes of the Bureau, I would now like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision 44-3B proposed. Rapporteur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't received any amendments.
No. Any comments? No? Oh, I see now. I therefore declare draft decision 44-3B adopted. I declare agenda item 3B closed. Ladies and gentlemen, let us examine now item 4 of our agenda. As you know, Ms. Mahani Tyler, Australia, was the rapporteur of the 43rd session of the World Heritage Committee, which was held in 2019 in Baku, Azerbaijan. Therefore, I now have the pleasure to invite Ms. Tyler to present her report, which will highlight the main issues discussed during our last session. I understand, however, that she is not able to join us today live, but has kindly prepared a video recording to address the committee.
Hello all, my name is Mahani, and I have the great honour of being the rapporteur of the 43rd session of the World Heritage Committee in Baku, Azerbaijan, from 30 June to 10 July in 2019. The past 18 months have been, of course, very difficult globally, and the 44th session was first postponed and is now being held virtually as a consequence. One of the very small upsides of this pandemic and the move to working away from our offices is that we see a small glimpse into the homes and lives of our colleagues. I'm filming this report from here in Canberra, in our nation's capital, from my back deck. If you're lucky, you may be able to see or hear some of the many parrot species we have here in our nation's capital. I'm pleased to present to you a report of my work as the Rapporteur of the 43rd session. At its 43rd session, the World Heritage Committee adopted 245 decisions, the highest number since 2011. 2,000 participants from 130 states, parties and observers registered. 260 non-government and intergovernmental organisations also registered, as well as 63 international journalists. The session was generously hosted by the Republic of Azerbaijan and chaired by Dr. Abulfaz Gariev, who steered the committee through many difficult discussions and decisions over 10 long days. The committee, at its 43rd session, inscribed 29 new properties onto the World Heritage List and approved the extension of one property already inscribed. Of these, 4 were natural, 1 were mixed, and 24 were cultural. Of those newly inscribed properties at the 43rd session, 1 was from the African region, 2 from the Arab region, 10 properties from the Asia-Pacific region, 15 properties from the Europe and North America region, and 1 property from the Latin America Caribbean region. Following the debates, 2 nominations were referred and 3 were deferred. At this session, in 8 cases, the committee did not follow the advisory body recommendation which was presented in the draft decision. 4 referrals became inscriptions. 2 deferrals became inscriptions. 1 deferral became a referral. And 1 property recommended for non-inscription was inscribed on the World Heritage List. In 1 case, the committee agreed to refer a site back, although it was recommended for inscription. This was due to the withdrawal by one state party of a component part of the transnational serial nomination prior to the committee meeting. In General Item 8, perhaps in recognition of the 8 cases in which the committee did not follow the advisory body advice, the committee reaffirmed the overriding necessity to continue to work towards bringing greater convergence between the decisions taken by the committee and the recommendations of the advisory bodies. It also strongly reiterated that only meeting criteria is not sufficient to warrant inscription. To be deemed of outstanding universal value, a site must also meet the conditions of integrity and authenticity and must have an adequate protection and management system in place also. The committee also endorsed the principle of a 2-phase nomination process to support the development of high-quality nominations for sites through enhanced dialogue very early in the process between the states parties and the advisory bodies. The 43rd session also examined 166 reports on the state of conservation, including 54 properties inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger. Among these reports, 22 were opened for discussion. However, a large number of sites that weren't open, statements were still made, including by non-government organisations. At this session, the committee decided to inscribe 1 property on the list of World Heritage in danger. This site was in Mexico. At the same time, 2 properties were removed from the list of World Heritage in danger, 1 property in Chile and 1 in Palestine. There are now 53 properties inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger. 4 proposals for inscription on the list of World Heritage in danger were not approved by the committee. The committee reaffirmed the need to promote a better understanding of the implications and benefits of properties being inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger. Under Item 7, the committee was presented with a comprehensive evaluation of the reactive monitoring process. The committee requested that all stakeholders of the convention implement the recommendations as soon as possible. Addressing climate change, the existential crisis of our time, the committee noted progress on updating the 2007 policy on the impacts of climate change on World Heritage properties. The draft updated document is to be examined by the committee at this 44th session. At the end of my report, may I repeat what I said last year at the end of the committee meeting to applaud the Secretariat for the immense and dedicated work they put forward in ensuring the success of our committee's sessions. The job of rapporteur would not be possible at all without the extraordinary work of the Secretariat. I'm very grateful to have worked with them so closely in the last session. I would also like to congratulate and wish all the best to the next rapporteur, Ms. Mireille Hassultan-Wasinski from Bahrain. I'm certain she will do wonderfully. I wish all the members of the committee rich debates, smooth proceedings and a successful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. we have agreed that this is an item to be adopted without debate. Therefore, on behalf of all the committee members, I'd like to reiterate our gratitude to the rapporteur for such high quality work and to the Secretariat at Baku for their great work. And once more, I wish to thank Azerbaijan for the perfect organization and the conditions provided for the previous session. I propose that the committee takes note of the report by the rapporteur of the 43rd session. If there's no objection, it's so decided. Thank you very much. I now close item 4 of the agenda. Dear colleagues, we're now moving to the opening of our agenda item 14, dedicated to the budget matters. The relevant document for this item is document 14. However, before we do so, I'd like to give the floor to the director of the World Heritage Center, Ms. Rosler, who will provide us with some important clarifications regarding this agenda item and the two next ones, items 11 and 12. Ms. Rosler, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are in a particular situation here as we have to consider the examination of 3 items, 14, 11, and 12 together because they are linked with each other. Indeed, as you remember, the committee at its 43rd session in 2019 had endorsed the principles and modalities of the preliminary assessment proposed in the framework of the reform of nominations. It also decided to extend the mandate of the ad hoc working group to further elaborating upon the nomination reform process and the preliminary assessment proposal and review the outcomes of the work of an expert drafting group that was constituted to discuss and propose concrete changes to be introduced into the operational guidelines in this regard. The report of the ad hoc working group is contained in document 11, while the proposed changes and concrete changes to the operational guidelines are presented in document 12. Furthermore, financial implications related to the proposed reform are reflected in document 14 on the budget. Consequently, and as you see, these discussions on the items are closely linked. Therefore, as indicated in the timetable, it is proposed that we will leave item 11 and 12 open to take into account discussions and proposed recommendations that may arise during the working group on the budget, which we will now establish, because that's a standing body, Mr. Chair. Furthermore, Mr. Chair, as also indicated in the timetable, the establishment of the working group on the operational guidelines was foreseen. However, committee members may wish to decide on the necessity of such a working group after having heard the report of the chairperson of the ad hoc working group, and there were already discussions at the Bureau yesterday in this regard. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Many thanks. These are indeed extremely important points to consider in our deliberations. Dear colleagues, as you will remember, the committee established by decision 35-12B, a standing consultative body for review of the committee's biannual budget in conformity with Article 20 of the Rules of Procedure. This consultative body is open to all states parties that wish to participate, including states non-members of the committee. I would like also to recall that the advisory bodies will have the possibility to attend this working group as observers. Based on past year's practice, I'd propose that the budget working group meets 3 times from 21st to 23rd July, from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Paris time. Is there any objections on this proposal? I see none. This so decided. Furthermore, as you know, as per Rule 20.2 of the Rules of Procedure, it is of the responsibility of the group to elect its chairperson. However, I understood that some consultations already took place in this regard. Therefore, I'd like to know if a delegation would like to make a proposal. Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Allow me, since this is our first intervention, to congratulate you for organizing and chairing this session. And I would like also to thank Dr. Roster, the Director of World Heritage Committee, for the excellent presentation of the session. To respond to the question you had just addressed, I would like to present the candidature of Councillor Ms. Zoya Kritskaya from the delegation of the Russian Federation to UNESCO to chair the working group on budget. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Are the members of the committee in agreement with this proposal? I see no objection. This is so decided. Congratulations. Dear colleagues, please note, therefore, that the first meeting of the budget group will be held on 21st July from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Paris time, using the same Zoom link as for this plenary meeting. Dear colleagues, as we have just heard from Ms. Rossler, I suggest that we open item 11, which concerns the follow-up to recommendations of evaluations and audits on working methods, jointly with item 12 on the revision of the operational guidelines, as they are intrinsically linked with each other. The relevant documents for these items are document 11 and document 12. As you will remember, the committee at its 38th session in 2014 decided to establish an ad hoc working group to examine the issues related to working methods of the evaluation and the decision-making process of nomination. Since this date, the working group has met between sessions, examining different matters in this framework. Therefore, since our last session in Baku, the ad hoc working group has met several times, chaired by China, to review the outcomes of the work of the expert drafting group, tasked to discuss and propose concrete changes to be introduced into the operational guidelines to reflect the preliminary assessment. The ad hoc working group also had the mandate to further elaborate upon the nomination reform process and the preliminary assessment proposal based on the decision 43-12. I'm pleased to give the floor to the chairperson of the ad hoc working group, Mr. Yin Jiang, who will report to the distinguished committee members on the work of the group. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depends on where you are, distinguished committee members. As per the decision 43-12, the ad hoc working group is composed of members of the committee and up to 2 non-members per electoral group. The composition of the working group is provided in Annex A of item 11. The mandate of the working group is to review the outcomes of the work of the expert drafting group and further elaborate upon the nomination reform process and preliminary assessment proposal based on the decision 43-12. The World Heritage Center, in consultation with the advisory bodies, has organized an expert drafting group to discuss and propose concrete amendments to the operational guidelines. The experts are from the United Kingdom, Slovenia, Jamaica, Zimbabwe, Bahrain, and Australia. The amendments to the text of the operational guidelines proposed by the expert drafting group have been circulated in January 2021 for further review by the working group. We invited working group members that would seek clarifications and that would have potential proposal for amendments to approach the Secretariat and the advisory bodies during the time between each of the meetings. As a result, the working group made the most effective use of the time available for its discussions. The working group focused on operationalization, being mindful of the need of careful alignment with existing processes and ensuring consistency. Now I would like to summarize some key issues we discussed. 1, time frame of the preliminary assessment. The working group that the committee decided in 2019 that the preliminary assessment should be finished at least 1 year before the phase 2 of the nomination cycle. The working group noted that the preparation of the full nomination dossier took a significant amount of time to develop. 2, transition period. The working group discussed 2 options for the transition period for the implementation of the preliminary assessment. The first option would be the fastest to enter into force, with the first deadline for the preliminary assessments request in September 2022. This option would be difficult to implement, as the budget for that period was already agreed. Therefore, the working group endorsed option 2 as a recommended option for implementing the preliminary assessment. According to this option, the first deadline for submitting a preliminary assessment request would be 15 September 2023. In the transition period, a state party can submit either a nomination dossier or a request for preliminary assessment per year. Nominations with and without a preliminary assessment would be considered by the committee until mid-2027. After each time, only nominations with a preliminary assessment will be reviewed by the committee. 3, financial implication. On the basis of the information provided by the Secretariat, the working group noted that once the preliminary assessment was introduced, it would become a mandatory process and should be funded through the World Heritage Fund. 4, revision of the amendments to the text of the operational guidelines. The working group reviewed the amendments to the text of the operational guidelines through a thorough analysis of the operational guidelines as a whole and agree upon the proposed changes span over different sections and annexes of operational guidelines, and recommend the committee to adopt the proposed revision of the operational guidelines. 4, potential impact. 5, potential impact of the preliminary assessment. The working group believed that the preliminary assessment would build the capacity of state parties to develop high quality nominations for sites which have a strong potential to succeed, and agree that the preliminary assessment should provide state parties with specific guidance and advice to aid in the preparation of the nomination dossier. The working group noted that the amendment to the operational guidelines relating to the preliminary assessment must reflect that the committee is the decision-making body with regards to the determination of the outstanding universal value. The working group also discussed some other issues related to the preliminary assessment. You can find more details in the document of item 11. Dear colleagues, I cannot finish the presentation without expressing my gratitude to all members of the working group for their constructive contributions, in particular, the reporter of the working group, Ms. Zoya Kriskaya of the permanent delegation of Russian Federation. My gratitude also goes to the Secretariat for their efficient and professional assistance during the meetings. Dear Mr. Chairperson, as you mentioned a moment ago, a working group on the operational guidelines may not be necessary during the session. Indeed, the recommendation of the working group have been consensually endorsed and do not imply any further work. As a matter of fact, the revision of the operational guidelines presented in document WHC/21/44.com/12 is specifically targeted to the integration of the preliminary assessment in the nomination process, and the proposed revisions have been already thoroughly discussed and endorsed by the working group. We would recommend, however, that the financial aspect linked to the reform of the nomination process and more specifically to preliminary assessment be examined in the framework of the budget working group that have been established and that will meet during the session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Dear colleagues, as it has been the practice for the past few years, allow me to suggest that we leave item 11 open for the moment to allow for further discussion and consultation, notably on matters that might be discussed during the working group on the budget. This will allow us to prepare and adopt an agreed decision on 30th July as foreseen in our timetable. If there's no objection, I take it that the committee agrees with this proposal and that item 11 remains open. Okay. Regarding item 12, on the revision of the operational guidelines, as the committee has just heard from the chairperson of the ad hoc working group, it is not recommended to establish a working group on the operational guidelines during this session. This was also supported during the first Bureau meeting yesterday by several members of the Bureau. I recall that all financial aspects related to the revision of the operational guidelines will be addressed by the working group on the budget. Can I take it that the committee agrees with this proposal? I see none. So there's therefore no need to establish such working group on the operational guidelines. Let's proceed then. So we now move to our next agenda item. Dear colleagues, we now move to the next item concerning the report of the World Heritage Center on its activities since the last session of the World Heritage Committee in 2019, which is contained in document 5A. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the postponement of our session to 2021, exceptionally this year, the report of the Secretariat spans over a 2-year period and is therefore very comprehensive. As you will remember, by decision 15X.com3, the committee decided that this agenda item would be adopted without debate. I would like to thank, on behalf of all the committee members and states parties, for the excellent work conducted by the World Heritage Center under the outstanding leadership of Ms. Rossler. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to proceed with the adoption of draft decision 44-5A. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't received any amendments.
Okay. Are there any comments? I see none. I therefore declare draft decision 44-5A adopted. I now declare agenda item 5A closed. Our next item is the reports of the advisory bodies on their activities. These reports are presented in document 5B and exceptionally spans over 2-year period this year. As for the report of the Secretariat we have just examined, I thank the 3 advisory bodies for these very informative reports. As you will remember, by decision 15X.com3, the committee decided that this agenda item would be adopted without debate. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to proceed with the adoption of draft decision 44-5B. I would like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
There were no amendments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. Any comment? I see now. I therefore declare draft decision 44-5B adopted. I now declare item 5B closed. We will move now to the next item, which concerns Priority Africa, Sustainable Development and World Heritage, and is contained in document 5C. As you will remember, by decision 15X.com3, the committee decided that this agenda item would be adopted without debate. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to proceed with the adoption of the draft decision 44-5C. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We haven't received any amendments under this item as well.
No amendment?
No amendments.
Okay, thank you. Any comments?
May I from Oman, please?
Oman, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks to all the colleagues from the Secretariat. But what we are expecting, yes, there will be no debate on the reports, but we are expecting a short presentation about each report. Now nothing is presented, but we should have a short presentation about each report from the Secretariat. Thank you.
Yes. Any other comment? Yeah. Okay, no other comment. Now I give the Secretariat to have a 2-minute statement. On this matter.
It's not foreseen, you see, so this
Yes.
is, but if the committee insists.
Yes.
Should I explain it?
Yes, Ms. Rosler, you have the floor. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you know, and this is to answer the point from Oman, it was decided that certain reports would go to the committee without presentation from the Secretariat, and that the committee would go directly into the decision. But I'm sure that my colleagues, in case you have any specific questions on the draft decision, will be able to answer your questions. Or if the committee would nevertheless insist, of course, my colleagues can make a very brief introduction to this item if you wish to hear them. So it's up to you. Maybe the delegate from Oman can reply to this point.
Oman, please, is it okay?
No, thank you. I don't have any specific question, but we were expecting a presentation. Since there was a decision not to be presented, it's okay for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I therefore declare draft decision. Oh, sorry, Ethiopia, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. We would like, in line with Oman, we'd like to have a presentation on this issue by the Secretariat regarding priority Africa. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my colleagues in Paris will do the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. I will make the presentation along with my colleague, Mohammed Juma. I will give you just a brief overview of the document, and Mr. Juma can provide some additional details. The report on the progress of priority Africa, sustainable development and world heritage is mainly structured around a few key points. The first is the state of conservation in Africa, then the regional and national policies and initiatives that have been undertaken, then looking at the way in which the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy has been operationalized. The operationalization has the support for operationalizing the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy was requested during the last session, and some of the activities regarding the development of the tools have been noted here, and then also some work on good practices and so on. The periodic reporting exercise, which is the third periodic reporting exercise, will also be covered in a separate item. So, and Mr. Juma may wish to elaborate on it because there was a reporting exercise for the Africa region that was undertaken. And then we have a number of local initiatives for sustainable development and World Heritage properties that we have that has been elaborated in the report. These are examples of various initiatives that have been undertaken at different sites across the world. And these are looked at around some key thematic areas. The first is to do with initiatives around inclusion for sustainable development. The second, which is looking at enhancing resilience and environmental sustainability, looking at local communities, then initiatives around enabling inclusive and equitable growth, those around peace and security, then around the theme of enhancing knowledge and skills, and for each there are specific examples and links provided. Then there is an item on, there is a paragraph on the strengthening of governance, which is also a theme that came up. And then the last theme here under this set is the preparation of tentative lists and nomination files, for which a variety of efforts have been made, and Mr. Juma can elaborate a bit more on that. And then addressing the most vulnerable. The next section is on addressing the most vulnerable World Heritage properties, which has to do with the properties that are already on the danger list, and looking at how to bring them to establish the desired state of conservation. Then we have a section on monitoring and measurement, looking at the Culture 2030 indicators framework and looking at how this framework could provide valuable measures and data for for understanding the way, the progress of sustainable development, and looking also at the periodic reporting exercise and the indicators within that as another aspect of this. And the frameworks themselves, because the framework of the Culture 2030 indicators has these specific dimensions. So the structure of the report is already looking at the same sort of dimensions, the same thematic areas, so that different aspects of sustainable development are already addressed. The next section is on key global partnerships, because there's a number of different partnerships that have been established from the World Heritage International Assistance to the UNESCO Africa-China Forum, to the Africa World Heritage Fund and IUCN activities. And of course, the African World Heritage Fund is a very close partner. And finally, we close with, and of course, there's the support from Norway and a number of projects from that. Again, something that my colleague can touch upon. And then the challenges, priorities, and the way forward, where certainly the idea that there's a need for capacity building and awareness, which further work is much required. And that more broadly sustainable development requires finding solutions that benefit both the needs of the local communities and the protection of World Heritage properties, rather than seeing these as opposing. And with that, I just want to, and also to invite, of course, with the guidance and coordination of the advisory bodies in collaboration with the African World Heritage Fund, and the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage and other stakeholders to look at taking further actions and initiatives in this regard. And I will now, Mr. Chairperson, with your permission, ask my colleague, Mr. Mohammed Juma, to add his comments.
Yes, Mr. Mohammed Juma, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to go direct now to more details, as my colleague has already, she has already given that general, description of this periodic reporting. Maybe with some example, concrete example, what we have done during this period, it can maybe give a more kind of information. If I go to nomination, now we are working with 15 countries in Africa, with the fund from Japan and Oman. With Oman, we are now funding 5 countries in East Africa specifically. We're talking about Tanzania, Kenya, Comoro, and Madagascar. With Oman, we are funding 10 countries. With Japan, we are funding 10 countries. And those 10 countries, they are countries which today they don't have property. So we're talking about Burundi, Djibouti, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Rwanda, Sao Tome, Principe, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. This is what we are doing specifically with nomination. But then when we come to international assistance during this period, there's 20 countries which has been supporting international assistance for to review their tentative list and then to go to nomination. So this is a typical example. When we come now to danger listing, as we say, we are now working with the state party to develop a strategy for all 16 countries. And this we have a fund from Norway for that strategy. We have already started, and the working document has been agreed between Secretariat and the advisory body. When it comes to capacity building, as we have said, there's a specific kind of item on periodic reporting. I'm not going to touch it now, but as it has been said, for Africa, we have 100% capacity building this year. All 96 property has been filled their questionnaires. But we have also databases. This has been expressed. We have a database for Africa. Now we have 140 experts in Africa there in this database. 54 of them are women and 25 are youngsters. Following this database, we didn't just have a database, but we have now created what we call mentorship program. This mentorship program, we have started pilot with 12 mentorship in Africa. Our target is from next year to increase the number to 20 in mentorship for the period of 5 years. So this mentorship program is part of this database we have been developed. But we are also have this establishing this network of site managers. All site managers in Africa, they are going to have a network. We are also initiating a network of universities is part of this capacity building. So this is a typical example of what we have done in this priority Africa. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any other comments, questions? I see now. Now I therefore declare draft decision 44-5C adopted. I declare item 5C now closed. We will move now to the next item concerning World Heritage Convention and sustainable development. Please refer to document 5D in this regard. As you will remember, by decision 15X.com3, the committee decided that this agenda item would also be adopted without debate. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to proceed with the adoption of draft decision 44Com5D. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received no amendments.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Australia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Australia is very interested in this issue, and we would be pleased to hear more from the Centre on the and a presentation on this report if it would be permissible. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Chair, this is my colleague, our Deputy Director on this item. Thank you.
Okay, please, you have the floor, Deputy Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Again, this was an item that we had not anticipated a presentation on, but there's no problem. We just give you an overview of this document. Again, for this document, this is a policy that came about in 2015 and was adopted, and it was adopted just before the, or in theory, really just adopted because the committee adopted it just before the 2030 agenda was adopted in September, and then the General Assembly adopted it in 2015 November. So there's a bit of alignment and the synergy that we looked at, and there were several other frameworks that have been also international agreements on sustainable development that have come about in recent years. So one of the activities has been to look at the synergies to align the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy, and because there's a lot of synergy and a lot of alignment already, but to further to look at this more carefully. And then looking at the activities that have been undertaken at the global level and then also at the local level. The secretariats of looking at environment and resilience, for example, the secretariats of the 8 biodiversity conventions, related conventions, including World Heritage Convention, have been working closely through the liaison group of the biodiversity-related conventions, and you can find more details of this within, and I'm not going to go into each of the activities, but there's a lot of different activities related to natural disasters, related to specific projects in the Congo Basin and on national consultative workshops. With regard to climate change, this is also SDG 13, but it's also another document that we have. So this matter will be discussed under 7C. So the natural and cultural heritage would be regarded as both shared assets. And there's a report also on the World Heritage Marine Program that I think that there will be elaborated more in this regard in 7C. With regard to enabling poverty alleviation and sustainable livelihoods for local communities, the conservation and management of natural heritage has tremendous potential to address many of these sustainable development challenges. So various different efforts and initiatives to further community sustainable development has been looked at from various projects in Lesotho, for example, to Botswana, the Okavango Delta, and so on. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on World Heritage and the responses have also been looked at, and thanks to the government of Japan, a global project has been launched to explore strategies. and the UNESCO Tourism Pledge, which is in partnership with the Expedia Group, is something that we've looked at also, and that has been included here. And looking at sustainable cities and settlements, which is SDG 11. The 10th World Urban Forum was something that we took part in. The 40th General Conference of UNESCO also reaffirmed the importance of the 2011 recommendation on the historic urban landscape, which celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. And various workshops have been, and activities of the cities program have been listed. And the importance of looking at cities also in terms of the urbanization pressures, as well as the impact of COVID and the relationship to climate change. With regard to enhancing knowledge and skills, a number of different capacity building, education and awareness raising activities have been carried out, and these along with the UNESCO chairs and Category 2 centers, all of which are in other reports that you will be hearing. On the topic of promoting social inclusion and empowering local communities, including youth and indigenous people, there's a whole section, and a section on promoting peace and security and facilitating international cooperation. Now, all of these different dimensions have been looked at from the perspective of also the framework of the Culture 2030 indicators, in synergy, as I mentioned, with the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy dimensions. And then finally, looking at the measurement and monitoring, the Culture 2030 indicators that have been, the implementation has been launched, and of course the sustainable heritage is a very much an important part of it, as well as there's a dimension on climate change related issues, among others, including knowledge and skills. And finally, for the key challenges related to World Heritage Sites and sustainable development, the unprecedented crisis arising from the COVID-19 pandemic has had various impacts that will be also reported separately in another, or have been already reported in the information document 5A.2. In terms of other activities that have been outlined are the development of draft tools for preliminary assessment to support the implementation of the operationalization of the World Heritage Sustainable Development Policy in terms of draft tools to check, do the sort of a preliminary health check, or to help with project sustainability of projects along with this. And the platform Canopy, which has been developed to share innovative strategies of sustainable development along with heritage conservation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Any more comments? I see now. I therefore declare draft decision 44-5D adopted. I now declare agenda item 5D closed. Dear colleagues, we will now move to item 6 of our agenda, follow-up to the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy and the Progress Report on the World Heritage related Category 2 centers. The relevant working document is document 6. Considering their close links, these two reports are presented together within the same document. Like our previous items, by Decision 15X.com3, the committee decided that this agenda item would be adopted without debate. I therefore invite you, dear colleagues, to proceed with adoption of the draft decision 44-6. But before we do so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments on the draft decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received an amendment to the draft decision 44-6. Amendment was submitted by the distinguished delegation of Saudi Arabia. The proposal is shown on the screen. Could we share the, okay, thank you.
Yes.
The proposal is shown on the screen. It proposes 3 new paragraphs, namely paras 3, 4, and 5, and modifications are proposed under new paras 6, 10, 11, 12, and 13. For consistency, we had 2 minor corrections under new paras 3 and 6. Further recalling changed into also recalling, and further takes note into also takes note, respectively, in new paras 3 and 6. The proposed amendment was circulated beforehand, and I hope the committee members had the chance to look at it. Due to the time constraints, I would suggest not to read the text, Mr. Chair, but if it is suitable for you as well, we can perhaps adopt the decision paragraph by paragraph in order to give enough time to the members of the committee to intervene if they wish to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving me the floor. Since it's my first intervention in this long-awaited 44th session of the committee, please allow me to extend my country's utmost gratitude and appreciation for the government of China for its exemplary efforts to host this year's session against all odds perpetrated by the COVID-19 pandemic. I certainly enjoyed the fabulous Chinese opera performance yesterday, and I'm sure that my fellow committee members share the same enjoyment. Before I go on explaining the amendment we have proposed the committee members on this item, I would like to take a moment to thank the World Heritage Center and advisory bodies, along with all Category 2 centers that spared no effort to implement the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy. And we appreciate the initiatives launched, the workshops conducted, and the projects completed for the past decade. We also would like to thank the World Heritage Center Secretariat for a very fruitful and productive meeting yesterday, in which we have gone through the amendments and discussed them thoroughly to reach the draft decision that lay before you today. With that said, we tried to capture 2 major points in the draft that is on the screen now. The first point is the need to carry out an independent evaluation of the previous strategy, an evaluation process that is result-based, inclusive, transparent, and based on close consultation with the state parties and other capacity building stakeholders and beneficiaries to be examined by the committee next year. The second major point is that a revision of the existing strategy will not be enough, because this year marks the 10th anniversary of the current strategy. Therefore, we believe it is necessary, based on the aforementioned independent evaluation, that a new World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy with clear priorities, strategic objectives, expected outputs and outcomes, and relevant indicators to be developed for a time period of 2023 to 2032 and presented for review in the 46th session. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia, since the inception of a dedicated Ministry of Culture in 2018, has already embarked on numerous national capacity building programs and initiatives related to culture and heritage, and we are committed to work with all relevant international stakeholders to develop and empower the next generation of experts and practitioners from all regions of the world. Once again, thanks to the government of China for hosting us all this year, and thanks to the Secretariat and all partnering bodies and centers for all their efforts. And I look forward to the forthcoming discussion on this item. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words for China and for the opening ceremony. Any other comments? Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Allow me also to express our appreciation for the government of Saudi Arabia for the financial support they had extended to contribute to the independent evaluation of the current World Heritage Capacity Building strategy. And I would like to propose adding this between paragraphs 10 and 11 of the draft decision. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, Ethiopia, please. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. We would like to support wholeheartedly the amendments and the general spirit proposed by Saudi Arabia, in this DR. In this decision. It's very important for us that the issues that we have raised in our opening statements be addressed, and this is one of the ways of addressing them. The issues of truly having an independent audit of the real results, the tangible results of the protection and conservation strategy, the World Heritage Center, and then of course the issue of diversity of experts, which is a serious challenge and a problem for us, and which must be addressed. And of course, we thank Saudi Arabia for the generous contribution, both in terms of the revision and in terms of the financial. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Brazil, please. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, thank you.
There's a problem. We can't hear. We can't hear clearly.
No.
Sorry, we can't hear clearly. There's still some problem. It's not very clear.
Let's see if we can make it clear. Can you see now?
How often it may be better?
No. We can check
maybe cut off the camera. It will be better.
You think so?
No.
It's better now.
No, it's still not clear. The signal is not clear.
It's better. Look.
No. No, it's.
Okay. We will see if we can organize this, and we will come back.
After the others.
Maybe I come back to you after two other colleagues. It's okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Oman, please.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We are in full agreement with the amendment provided by Saudi Arabia, and I also would like to extend with others my thankfulness for all the support provided by Saudi Arabia. So we are in agreement with this amendment for this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now Russia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Since I intervened for the first time, first of all, I would like to congratulate you on your chairmanship and wish you all the best and great success in your activity. And also to thank the government of China for assuming the leadership of our committee in a situation which is far from easy. We support the amendments presented by a distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia. I would like, first of all, to point out the importance of the idea to enhance expert diversity. We think it would be very important to enlarge the circle of experts on World Heritage, especially by the greater contribution of regional experts who knows the realities of their regions, of their countries, and therefore the capacity building acquires a very important dimension. Thank you.
Thank you. Brazil, now it's okay? Maybe Thailand first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the Thai delegation is taking the floor for the first time, I'd like to express our sincere and utmost appreciation to the government of China for the tremendous efforts under very difficult circumstances caused by COVID-19 in organizing this meeting of the World Heritage Committee. Also, allow me to congratulate you on your chairmanship of this meeting, and we promise to extend to you our full support. On behalf of the Thai delegation, I would like to express our full support for the amendments proposed by Saudi Arabia. Capacity building definitely is crucially important to the work of the convention. And indeed, we need to give it greater priority and lay out a clear-cut strategy as proposed by the amendments made by Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the proposal and the kind words. Now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have the floor. Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have the floor. Your microphone maybe is muted.
Excusez-moi.
Yes, it's okay. Yeah.
Voilà. Je me rejoins à mes collègues pour féliciter la Chine d'avoir organisé dans des conditions très, très difficiles cette conférence. Et je n'ai qu'à féliciter à tous ceux qui ont contribué à remercier le gouvernement de Chine. La Bosnie-Herzégovine soutient la proposition de l'amendement de l'Arabie saoudite et tient à exprimer un intérêt qui est partagé par beaucoup d'entre nous, d'après ce qu'on a pu voir ces jours-ci et même avant, concernant le renforcement des capacités et concernant une inclusion plus transparente et plus visible des experts régionaux qui connaissent mieux la situation sur le terrain et en général la transparence de ce qu'on appelle les expertises des sites, parce qu'il y a très souvent une grande différence entre la proposition et les efforts que font les pays qui donnent des propositions et des opinions des experts qui ne sont pas toujours, je dirais pas favorables, très souvent ne sont pas favorables, mais il y a une grande différence entre la proposition des pays et les propositions des pays et les opinions des experts. Donc, il faut voir de quoi il s'agit. Et pour ça, nous avons besoin de cette transparence. Et donc, je soutiens la continuation de cette discussion dans le sens que l'amendement a proposé. Et je vous remercie. C'est la première fois que Bosnie a pris la parole dans cette conférence.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words and for your comment. Now I come back to our colleague, Brazil. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very clear.
Oh, fantastic. Mr. President, as far as this is the first time we speak in this meeting, allow me to thank you and Ambassador Ying Yang and all our Chinese hosts and the Secretariat for the extraordinary work input in this for having this special committee session. And we are very happy that we could finally sort out some technical issues. Mr. President, capacity building is the only way to enable many countries to become actors in the transformative change that we need. Category 2 centers have a large role to play in this, as they are the training units present on the ground, which can have immediate impact on local communities in the regions. In Brazil, although considerably hampered by the COVID-19, our center, Lucio Costa, has maintained almost all its activity because it could direct its work to online platform. The center is now, Mr. President, this is important, working on the internationalization of its professional MBA on preservation of cultural heritage. Mr. President, we have to support very strongly Saudi Arabia amendments and benefit from this, the fact that this 10th year anniversary of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy, we believe is the excellent moment for an evaluation and of what the strategy has accomplished so far in order to be able to draft an ambitious new plan for the next decade. We support very strongly those amendments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Now, Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me begin by echoing fellow colleagues at the committee, congratulating you and China for organizing this committee meeting in these unconventional circumstances. And I would like to reiterate as well what our colleagues from Brazil have mentioned with regards to the Category 2 centers. We in Bahrain have put great effort and resources as well in supporting the Category 2 centers, particularly here in the Arab region. And we thank the Secretariat as well with the advisory bodies of being partners in this process. And we do emphasize their important role moving forward in terms of developing any capacity building strategy in the future. And in light of that, we are also in support of the proposal by Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Guatemala, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'm having problems with opening. Okay, now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, as this is the first time I take the floor, I'd like to congratulate your government, the government of China, and also your leadership, Mr. President, and the leadership of your country in the running and leading this very important committee session, especially in the situations that we are facing right now. Y ahora haré mi intervención en español, agradeciendo de nuevo al Gobierno de España por el apoyo que siempre provee para él. También agradecer profundamente el trabajo del secretariado y de los órganos evaluadores respecto de todo el trabajo y todo el reto, la forma virtual y la forma en que se está desarrollando. Con respecto a la propuesta de Arabia Saudita, consideramos que es una propuesta sumamente interesante, altamente importante, comentando y enfocándonos en la representación regional, no solamente de evaluar la cantidad o inclinación de organizaciones, sino también en cuanto a la representación regional de los expertos evaluadores. Tenemos en cuenta el aspecto cultural, el aspecto social, el aspecto antropológico, para darle una capacidad mucho más amplia al proceso de análisis nominativo. Creemos que es necesario tener representación regional para estos procesos. Además, también la sugerencia y la propuesta de enmienda de un mecanismo de evaluación externo para evaluar dificultades, evaluar cuáles son nuestras fuerzas y debilidades, por lo que Guatemala apoya la enmienda de la. Gracias, señor presidente, de nuevo por darme la palabra.
Thank you very much. Now Uganda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Uganda is taking the floor for the first time since the opening of the session. I therefore would like to thank China for organizing and hosting the extended 45th session of the World Heritage Committee. I have taken the floor to support the amendments proposed by the distinguished permanent delegate of Saudi Arabia to UNESCO. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now Spain, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Como es la primera vez que intervengo, también le felicito por su presidencia y por la organización de este comité. Este comité que tiene 2 sesiones, porque el año pasado, como todo el mundo sabe, no pudimos celebrar y está abordando dificultades que no son solo nuestras. Son dificultades que han tenido todos los países, especialmente más acusadas en aquellos países que tienen más dificultades económicas, climáticas y de otro tipo. Digo esto porque estos factores quizás no sé si se han tenido en cuenta de manera global y en algún caso de manera particular a la hora de algunas evaluaciones, pero tiempo tendremos de hablar de ello. Estas singularidades hay que tenerlas en cuenta, no se puede tener una exigencia global a todo el mundo sin tener en cuenta la asimetría de capacidades y dificultades del gran esfuerzo que hay que hacer para tener propuestas en este comité. Después de eso, y sin querer repetir algunos argumentos que han dado ya mis colegas, suscribimos y apoyamos la enmienda de Arabia Saudita porque consideramos oportuna en un estado de cosas como el que se está viviendo. Tendremos tiempo entre este año y el año que viene de actualizar, son 50 años de convención, de actualizar algunas cosas, pero en este momento la enmienda abre esa posibilidad, es oportuna y por tanto queríamos dejar patente el apoyo de España.
Thank you very much. Now China, please. Yeah, China.
主席先生，很高兴看到会议在您的主持下，各项议程进展得非常的顺利。我们对整个会议能够取得圆满的成功，非常充满着信心。中方赞赏自2011年以来，世界遗产能力建设战略通过以来呢，缔约国、世界遗产中心和咨询机构开展的卓有效的工作，赞赏遗产相关的2类中心、教习和其他合作伙伴所做出的积极贡献。中方注意到世界遗产中心正根据第43届遗产大会的决定，对能力建设进行战略的评估。中方呢，乐见下阶段的能力建设战略充分借鉴评估工作汲取的经验，更多的关注非洲等代表性不足地区的遗产能力的提高，通过能力建设惠及非洲国家、小岛屿国家，同时呢，鼓励青年一代更加充分的参与，推动建立平衡、可信、具有代表性的世界遗产名录。正如大家所知道的，中国国务院副总理孙春兰女士在昨天的开幕式上郑重地宣布，中方将在未来5年提供100个奖学金的名额，支持发展中国家，特别是非洲和小岛屿国家，培养世界遗产方面、保护方面的专业人才。中方将与教科文组织共同实施 非洲国家世界遗产申报和保护管理能力建设项目，举办非洲世界遗产申报和保护能力建设论坛，助力非洲国家保护世界遗产，改善世界遗产名录的代表性、平衡性和可信度。很高兴看到沙特代表团提交的决议案的修正案，我们对修正案的这个表示支持。谢谢。
Thank you. Now South Africa. South Africa. Maybe your microphone is muted.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, it's okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. South Africa wishes to join other delegations in congratulating you and China and your country, China, for hosting and presiding over these important sessions, especially during this very difficult period. We believe, Mr. Chairperson, that capacity building should be at the core of the work of the Secretariat in providing support to state parties to implement the 1972 Convention. We are particularly concerned, Mr. Chairperson, as China has recently highlighted, that there are too few properties on the World Heritage List from the African continent, and there are too many properties from the African continent that are in the endangered list. That is why we fully support, as South Africa, the amendments that are being proposed by Saudi Arabia. And to the extent that the Saudi Arabia brings to the fore important issues such as a need for a robust result-based capacity building strategy for 2023 to 2032. Saudi Arabia has also highlighted an important point that there's a need to ensure that such a strategy should result in enhancing expertise and strengthening regional expertise to enhance skills in order to address issues of capacity building on the continent. With these words, Mr. Chairman, we fully behind the proposed amendment by Saudi Arabia. I thank you.
Thank you. Now, Kyrgyzstan, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, of the extended 44th session of the World Heritage Committee, on behalf of the Kyrgyz Republic, I would like to congratulate the Republic of China for hosting this committee for World Heritage Committee. The preparation of this meeting of this stature can be challenging because of this current COVID situation. Therefore, we convey our sincere thanks for organizing this challenging session, and we wish a fruitful meeting. This session is exceptionally dense and important. The commitment of the UNESCO Secretariat and the UNESCO World Heritage Center, as well as the efforts made by the representative of ICOMOS, ICROM, AUCNN to examine the state of conservation and nomination. We wish to thank them in their contribution and their efforts. So we would like also support the Saudi Arabian amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, St. Kitts and Nevis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis wishes to congratulate you on your appointment as chairman and for the excellent hosting of this meeting by the government of China. We also support the amendment by Saudi Arabia, and especially as it has special significance for small island developing states or SIDS. This will lend great support to the enhancement of skills and capacity building in those countries. And therefore, we wish to congratulate and support Saudi Arabia on these amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to ask Ikram to give some response. Ikram, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And since this is the first time Ikram is taking the floor again, we would also like to thank the Chinese government for the excellent organization of this meeting. We're very much appreciative of it. So first of all, first and foremost, actually, we would really like to thank all of the committee members for their interventions on this item 6. We are very happy to hear the interest that capacity building has amongst all of the committee members, and hopefully amongst other state parties to the convention, as expressed today in these interventions. And I would say first and foremost that as the advisory body that has the focal point, let's say, for capacity building, that we look very much forward to developing new activities, new programs for capacity building with states parties and also with other capacity building actors such as Category 2 centers around the world. Specifically in regard to diversity, I just wanted to comment and say that yes, we completely agree with everything that has been expressed here today. There is definitely a need for as much diversity as we possibly can. And if you look at document 6, actually, you will see that there are quite a number of activities that are taking place all around the world related to capacity building for World Heritage, and that's really in all regions of the world. So I would refer you back to document 6 if you're interested. I obviously don't want to go into every single activity, but just to mention that we are. This is something that we take very seriously, this issue of diversity in terms of training of expertise and having the right expertise on hand in all regions of the world. Specifically in relation to Africa, I would certainly hope that committee members would recall that Ikram, along with the World Heritage Center, actually had a 12-year capacity building program in Sub-Saharan Africa, Africa 2009, and subsequent to that, we've been working with the Africa World Heritage Fund, with IUCN, with ICOMOS, and with other, again, with other capacity building partners in terms of trying to work with that region. And again, I mean, this is an area that Ikram has been very interested in for a long time. We've actually initiated a new program called Youth Heritage Africa, which will involve not just World Heritage, but World Heritage will certainly be a part of it. And so we very much look forward to working with states parties who have an interest in capacity building in that region. In regard, finally, to the issue of evaluation, first and foremost, we would like to thank the Saudi Arabian initiative, their amendments today, and we are very much in agreement with the idea of this independent, transparent consultation process for this results-based evaluation. The results-based evaluation was already requested last year, but the idea that we do it well, let me put it this way: we agree that it should be independent. It's not possible for ICRAM to evaluate itself or for the World Heritage Center to evaluate itself. So the idea that Saudi Arabia is coming in and saying this needs to be independent, and it also needs to be done in conjunction, in collaboration with states parties, is actually something that we very much support, and we look forward very much to working with them on this evaluation for the future. And just finally, to conclude, I would also like to thank our ongoing capacity building partners, specifically the government of Norway, Korea, Switzerland, and others who have been working with us up until now on some of the various capacity building initiatives. So again, finally, just to conclude, I'm really pleased at this discussion, and and the interest that's been shown today. And I very much really do look forward in the coming year, number one, to having this independent evaluation, number two, to developing for the following year a strong new capacity building program for World Heritage for the next 10 years. And we look forward to working with all states parties in this development. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, as we have a little technical problem, I suggested that we come back with a draft decision in 5 minutes. It's okay? In 5 minutes.
Okay.
Dear colleagues, now we resume our meeting with the floor given to Belgium. It's okay, yeah. Belgium, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, de nous avoir accordé la parole. En tant qu'observateur, je vais juste éliminer la traduction. Et bien sûr, toutes mes félicitations à vous et à la Chine pour l'organisation de ce comité. On voulait brièvement intervenir sur ce point et on veut en fait rejoindre les collègues qui ont parlé sur capacity building et surtout dans les pays africains. Parce que pour la Belgique, la Convention du patrimoine mondial ne peut être un instrument vraiment universel que s'il y a une répartition équitable, représentative et crédible des sites dans toutes les régions du monde. Et c'est avec regret qu'on constate que l'Afrique reste sous-représentée dans la liste du patrimoine mondial. La richesse naturelle et culturelle de l'Afrique est immense et elle mérite une place centrale dans nos discussions. Il est indispensable de soutenir nos partenaires africains, tant au niveau de la soumission de nouveaux dossiers que pour la conservation et la gouvernance des sites. C'est dans cette optique, en fait, que la Belgique a contribué financièrement à une série de projets liés au patrimoine en Afrique durant cette dernière décennie. Et la Belgique étant candidat au Comité du patrimoine mondial lors des prochaines élections, nous nous engageons à travailler pour et avec les partenaires africains avant que le patrimoine africain reçoive l'attention qu'il mérite. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Oh, thank you. Any other comments? No. Okay. Dear colleagues, since there were several revisions on the draft decision, I think it will be better for us to adopt the text of 44(6), paragraph by paragraph. So the committee, paragraph number 1, no objections on number 1. Examine the documents. Approved. Okay, approved. Paragraph 2, no change. No objection. Approved. Number 3, with changes. Can we accept it? Dear colleagues, do you want our rapporteur to read it? Rapporteur, you can read it.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. New paragraph 3 reads, also recalling that capacity building is one of the strategic objectives of the World Heritage Convention and is at the core of the sustainable implementation of the Convention, and therefore is a priority for the effective implementation of the World Heritage Convention for all stakeholders. Shall I continue with all the paragraphs, or shall we adopt paragraph by paragraph?
The paragraph by paragraph.
Okay.
Dear colleagues, no objections? Number 3. Okay, approved. Thank you. Number 4. Rapporteur, please.
New paragraph 4 expresses its concern over the challenges faced by the state parties in the protection and conservation of World Heritage properties in the face of increased global economic, social, digital, and environmental challenges, as well as the need to strengthen national and local capacities through enhanced knowledge exchange, capacity building, and training of current and future national and local officials in heritage conservation and management.
Okay, no objections? Okay, adopted. Number 5, rapporteur, please.
takes note of the need to enhance expert diversity, strengthen regional expertise, enhance skills to address issues at endangered sites, develop technical and vocational training modules for youth, develop competencies for all World Heritage stakeholders, improve the use of digital technologies within the process of identification, protection, conservation, presentation and transmission to future generations of the cultural and natural heritage, and to develop a strategic multi-stakeholder partnership program to enhance the credibility and visibility of the World Heritage brand globally.
No objections? Okay, adopted. Number 5, with some changes. Rapporteur, please.
It also takes note of the challenges faced by all stakeholders to maintain capacity building activities during the global COVID-19 pandemic and commends the progress made by the state parties, the World Heritage Center, the advisory bodies, Category 2 centers under the auspices of UNESCO related to World Heritage, as well as the UNESCO chairs with the implementation of the World Heritage Capacity Building Strategy, and notably the efforts to adapt capacity building activities during the global COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, no objections? Okay, approved. Number 6, Rapporteur, please.
New paragraph 7, we have no changes in new paragraph 7, 8, 9, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
10,
paragraph 8, 9.
And
yes.
Our next change is in new paragraph 10.
New paragraph 10. Okay, for the paragraphs, there are no changes, no objections. Okay, adopted. Now, continued.
New paragraph 10 reads, also takes note of the 10-year anniversary of the WHCBS in 2021 and further recalling its request for an evaluation of the WHCBS, notes that no funding has been made available for this purpose to date and therefore will consider reallocating USD 30,000 as seed money from the World Heritage Fund under item 14 of the agenda to initiate the evaluation and the creation of a new WHCBS.
No objections? Okay, Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us a chance to present this amendment. I would like also to thank all delegations who expressed their support and investment in this amendment. I would like here to confirm again Saudi Arabia's commitment to contribute to the evaluation of the strategy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I had made an intervention earlier asking to insert a paragraph here thanking the government of Saudi Arabia for the financial support it extended to contribute to the independent evaluation of the WHCBS. Thank you very much. Well, I suggest to make, yes, exactly, a new paragraph 11. Thank you very much.
Any objections? Yeah, type. Yeah, okay. Okay. It's okay. Rapporteur, can you read it? Yeah.
Yes, based on the comments of distinguished delegation of Egypt, we actually drafted beforehand. Could the delegation of Egypt agree with the proposed text? notes with appreciation the generous financial support offered by the State Party of Saudi Arabia to conduct the mentioned independent evaluation of the WHCBS. It was originally actually added as the new paragraph between paragraphs 11 and 12, but if the delegation of Egypt would prefer it in this location, it would be fine as well.
Egypt is okay for you?
Yes, it's okay for us, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any objections? No? Okay, let's continue. Mr. Rapporteur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. New paragraph 12 reads, requests the World Heritage Center and ICROM, in cooperation with IUCN and ICOMOS, to submit an independent, results-based evaluation of the outcomes of the WHCBS, based on close consultation and a participatory, transparent, and inclusive process with the state parties and other capacity-building stakeholders and beneficiaries for examination at its 45th session.
Any objections? No? Okay, approved. Ms. Rapporteur, you continue. Yeah, go on.
New paragraph 13 also requests, based on the independent results-based evaluation and assessment of the outcomes of the WHCBS and taking into account the results of the periodic reporting process, that a new WHCBS with clear priorities, strategic objectives, expected outputs and outcomes, and relevant indicators be developed for a time period of 2023-2032 and presented, if funding allows, for review at its 46th session.
Any objections? No. Okay, approved. Go on.
And a minor modification in new paragraph 14 reiterates its invitation to state parties to contribute financial resources for the renewal of the WHCBS through earmarked contributions to the World Heritage Fund or by providing extra budgetary support to the World Heritage Center for this purpose.
Approved? Okay, approved. Go on, please.
And the new paragraph 15, without any modifications, finally requests the World Heritage Center and ICROM to submit a progress report on the implementation of the WHCBS for examination and at its 45th session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any objections? No? Okay, approved. Okay, now we have went through all the text. If there are no other comment, I now declare the draft decision 44-6 adopted as amended. Dear colleagues, we are approaching at the end of today's agenda. As I have highlighted at the outside of our work, we as committee members should demonstrate our responsibility and determination to preserve and ensure a future legacy for humanity. As you know, our heritage is facing a level of threat never reached before in the history of the Convention, including current challenges of over-exploitation of natural and cultural resources, as well as the direct and the indirect impacts of armed conflicts and natural disasters. Most recently, the consequences of the unprecedented worldwide pandemic. This underlines the urgent necessity for the full engagement of governments, international organizations, civil society organizations, private sector, local communities, and all other key stakeholders to protect the World Heritage properties. Therefore, I took, as chairperson of the extended 44th session of the World Heritage Committee the initiative to present to you with a declaration to be adopted by the World Heritage Committee as a message to the international community, affirming our common endeavor in protecting our heritage for the future generations. I have proposed to name this declaration the Fuji Declaration. This text has been shared with all members of the committee who had the opportunity to comment and enrich it. The final text is also displayed on your screen. I would like to know whether there are any comments. Or I would like to read out the text on this occasion. 我让那个谁来读这个？啊？我来读啊。Dear colleagues, I read in Chinese the Fuji Declaration. Then, if you have any comments, I'd like to listen. 福州宣言，我们世界遗产委员会的成员于第44届世界遗产委员会会议在中国福州以线上形式召开之际，发出如下宣言：一级保护世界文化和自然遗产公约于过去50年获得全球共识和普遍认可，激发了全世界为保护文化和自然遗产的不懈努力，促进了人类与自然和谐相处，努力保护了遗产及其蕴含的文化和生物多样性，充分赞赏文化和自然遗产保护所取得的进步，认为其通过实现相互尊重文化身份与欣赏多元化的文化表现形式，促进了不同文明的理解与对话，为世界和平与可持续发展做出了贡献。重申需要我们着眼我们共同面对的未来而加强全球合作，包括在环境、经济、促进公正、和平与包容的社会等可持续发展的不同领域，将其与文化和自然遗产保护有机融合，以实现2030年可持续发展议程。充分认识到人类作为世界遗产突出普遍价值的守护者所面临的挑战与共同肩负的责任，认为世界遗产是全人类的文化瑰宝和自然珍宝，提供生态系统的重要会议，凝聚着人类丰富多彩的价值理念和创造力，表达对新冠肺炎疫情严重性的进一步关切，认为这体现出当地社区的重要性及其所面对共同的未来，这与世界遗产保护密切相关，同时凸显出在有效保护遗迹和支持当地社区及民生方面所需的经费和人力保障面临进一步短缺。铭记并见证气候变化已导致极端天气事件、自然灾害和其他负面影响日益频繁，这已与文化和自然遗产保护所面临的其他长期挑战相叠加，包括人口增长、快速城市化和城市发展规划不足。认识到世界遗产保护的挑战因疫情的长时间影响、自然和文化资源的过度开发和武装冲突而更加严峻，强调需要在联合国教科文组织成立75周年之际，重申并倡导其核心价值观、目标和使命，尤其要为 迎接世界遗产公约发表50周年纪念而强调其在生态保护、促进和平、凝聚社会团结方面所扮演的角色，以及2011年关于历史城市景观的建议书提出的将遗产保护与历史城市和居住地可持续发展相结合的目标，呼吁各国政府、国际组织、民间社会组织、私营部门和其他关键的利益攸关方共同参与世界遗产保护，避免列入名录的世界遗产受到武装冲突、自然灾害或非法贩运等对文化和自然遗产带来的威胁。重申世界遗产委员会历届会议宣言，如在布达佩斯2002年、波恩2015年、伊斯坦布尔2016年和巴库2019年会议上的宣言，重申1972年公约原则，呼吁为保护世界遗产的突出普遍价值、完整性和真实性而保护遗产免受任何影响。赞赏2012至2022年世界遗产公约实施战略行动计划所提出的6项重要目标和17项优先事项，以及得益于世界遗产委员会和缔约国的开放包容、持续对话互动、专业交流、知识信息共享和伙伴关系网络所取得的重大成绩。赞赏联合国教科文组织为应对新型冠状病毒疫情所发挥的重要作用，以及各缔约国为缓解疫情对全世界经济、社会、文化活动的严重影响所采取的行动，尤其是努力应对世界遗产地关闭、游客数量锐减、维护和修复不及时以及遗产地管理者安全健康风险等新挑战对世界文化和自然遗产保护所带来的严重影响。欢迎联合国教科文组织于2021年5月发布的面对新冠肺炎疫情的世界遗产最新报告，以期为疫情恢复路线图奠定基础，这将有助于加强文化和自然遗产未来的韧性。同时注意到在疫情危机中出现的积极趋势，特别是数字化技术的广泛应用，使得人们和遗产保持联系，并欢迎联合国气候变化框架公约及其巴黎协定2015和生物多样性公约所确定的目标和原则，强调认识到生物多样性的丧失和生态系统的退化对人类生存和发展以及世界遗产保护构成重大威胁，并强调将在中国昆明举行的第15次缔约方大会的重要性。感谢中华人民共和国政府为举办第44届世界遗产大会做出的贡献，要求进一步加强与文化和生物多样性相关公约之间的协同作用，对自然遗产和文化遗产地的保护采取整体办法，并呼吁缔约国加强国际团结，通过促进人与自然新的关系来保护文化和自然遗产，呼吁开展更紧密的国际合作，开展适当的研究和规划，以实现保护与可持续发展之间的平衡，同时秉承全人类共同价值，在普遍的多边主义框架内，为应对世界遗产现有挑战而探索新机遇，敦促学术界、民间社会和社区更广泛的参与， 大力加强遗产保护与社会和经济发展之间的关联，以期根据2015年世界遗产可持续发展政策保护世界遗产，使所有人受益。呼吁向有需要的国家，特别是非洲和小岛屿发展中国家提供更多支持，以建立更有平衡性、可信度和地域代表性的世界遗产名录。这也有利于提高认识、强化能力和完善文化和自然遗产保护活动，强调数字技术在有效改善遗产管理和能力建设方面的潜力，呼吁国际社会扩大对发展中国家的支持，优先关注非洲和小岛屿发展中国家，利用新技术优化创新性解决方案，邀请全体缔约国通过正规和非正规教育，加强面向青年人的世界遗产教育和知识分享，以提高他们对世界遗产保护必要性、价值、知识和技能的认识，培养新一代世界遗产青年保护者，并邀请缔约国参加并参与世界遗产公约50周年庆祝活动，借此机会回顾和分析其历史，展望其未来，以促进世界遗产保护，为后代保持一个开放、包容、能够自我调试、可持续、有韧性和清洁美丽的世界。Okay, I have read the text of Fuji Declaration. So I'd like to know whether there are any comments. I see now. Thank you very much for your support. And I declare the Fuji Declaration adopted. Dear colleagues, before we resume the examination of items on our agenda, and as indicated in our timetable, I would like us to dedicate a few more minutes to two other very important events that took place on the lead up to the 44th session, namely the World Heritage Young Professionals Forum and the World Heritage Site Managers Forum. The Young Professionals Forum took place online from 5th to 9th July and addressed the ambitious theme of world heritage and sustainable livelihoods, while the Site Managers Forum took place also online from 7th to 13th July and focused on world heritage governance, being prepared to manage change and continuity. As you know, it is now customary that these two fora present the committee with a message prepared by the participants of these important international events. I'm really pleased to have the chance to listen to these young future decision makers and to these women and men who tirelessly work hard daily to ensure our heritage sites are well managed and preserved. It's very important that their voices be heard in the context of the World Heritage Committee session. I now invite you to listen to the messages of the participants of the two fora. Thank you.
We, the participants of the UNESCO World Heritage Young Professionals Forum 2021, would like to extend our sincere thanks to Vice Minister of Education of the People's Republic of China, Mr. Tian Xuejun, Chairperson of the 44th session of the World Heritage Committee, and to the UNESCO World Heritage Center. Furthermore, we are grateful to the National Commission of the People's Republic of China for hosting the forum and the groups of experts and facilitators for the enriching insights and mentorship, and would like to share our recommendations with all heritage stakeholders through this outcome document, Youth Voices on World Heritage and Sustainable Livelihoods.
We recommend encouraging dialogue and enhancing the inclusive participation of local communities and youth to our World Heritage governance by promoting safe spaces for communication and councils, by developing new media platform for literal exchange, and by democratizing the decision-making processes, creating wider universal knowledge sharing platform accessible to all stakeholders, led by UNESCO in collaboration with advisory bodies, state parties, national, regional, and local governance structures, which would provide the best practices, guidelines, and propose strategy to empower local actors, supporting and mobilizing community heritage networks, and establish feasible and realistic exit strategy for external agency working on the field. Revise, discuss, and update World Heritage management plans in shorter time duration at the local level to account for evolving sociocultural context, value, perception, knowledge, and priorities for the stakeholders over time. Establishing dialogue and strong synergies with various sectors, those particularly engaged with digital technologies, toward World Heritage management in order to benefit from intersectoral expertise, encouraging the management and tourist bodies to implement sustainable tourism practices through cross-sectoral collaboration, and holding accountable the existing established management frameworks through the Qatar 2013 indicators, supporting local tourism through community-led projects on the ground by incorporating local knowledge into development projects,
recognizing and promoting the role of cross-sectoral institutions in the field of culture and environment in propagating the community's narratives and affinity to World Heritage sites through storytelling and other formats of documenting ethnographic information, empowering the local communities to develop their own narratives to interpret heritage documentation, conservation, and management through a mixed approach of modern technology and the community's traditional knowledge and skills, advocating equitable access to technology and connectivity at and around World Heritage sites by ensuring the allocation of sufficient funding and resources, by providing financial incentives, technological and logistic support, and business training to young professionals.
We as young heritage professionals commit ourselves to pursuing UNESCO's mandate of building peace.
Would like to thank the People's Republic of China for hosting and facilitating the online meeting to ensure the continuation of the forum as a venue for discussion, knowledge sharing, and exchange, especially in the COVID-19 global health crisis. Participants are grateful for the opportunity to work with and learn about the management and government structure of World Heritage property Kulansu, a historic international settlement.
The World Heritage Convention is a global standard-setting conservation instrument. National, regional, and local legal frameworks and policies regarding heritage conservation should be encouraged to be revised and updated on a cyclic basis. Traditional management practices reflecting community values should be integrated with the management frameworks for the World Heritage property to include monitoring, reporting, and adaptive strategies. World Heritage property must review and update the respective management plans and governance arrangement regularly in order to adapt continually to change. A World Heritage property, heritage should be at the center of local development strategies, contributing toward the quality of life of local communities and the conservation of the heritage values.
Management system of World Heritage properties needs to be based on approaches that enable functional management and decision-making grounded on technical advice, promoting active consultation with relevant and concerned actors, and setting up appropriate data management systems for management actions.
The management system should be interconnected and respond to different levels, national, regional, and local, with reciprocal cooperation between the different levels of governance. State parties are encouraged to establish management systems at the site level and provide continuous resources for site managers to set and achieve sustainable and strategic management objectives to respond to ongoing issues and challenges. Heritage is not only a component to be preserved, but to be seen as a sustainable resource for the future which has developed in a time-tested manner.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these thoughtful messages, of which the committee will take good note. Thank you. Dear colleagues, we're now moving to the examination of one of our major agenda items, namely item 7 on the state of conservation of World Heritage properties. This year, there are 2 draft decisions proposed for adoption within the related document 7. Decision 44-7.1 on statutory matters related to the reactive monitoring process. Decision 44-7.2 on the conservation issues. I would like to inform you that as for the past years, this item will remain open to possibly taking into account the debates held on the agenda items 7A and 7B. The draft decisions 7.1 and 7.2 will therefore only be adopted once we have completed the examination of items 7A and 7B. Before we proceed with this item, I'd like to inform you that since our last session in July 2019, the World Heritage community at large was saddened again by the loss of human lives, including of staff tragically killed while on duty, fighting against illegal activities within World Heritage sites. Therefore, I'd like to propose that tribute be paid to them and that we all observe 1 minute of silence in their memory. Stand up for 1 minute. Thank you. Dear committee members, I'd like to now give the floor to Ms. Rosler, Director of the World Heritage Center, to introduce this item. Ms. Rosler, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You have the document number 7 in front of you. This is composed of the introduction, which you have seen, which provides some statistical analysis. And then we have 2 parts, which is part 1 on the reactive monitoring process. And then we have more strategic and policy implications in part 2. So as you introduced, we have 2 parts of the decision, which will be adopted at the end of the items 7A and 7B. So in case you have any additions to make, any other considerations to add, that will be throughout these items. I think there is a PowerPoint with my presentation, if that could be put up. The World Heritage Convention is one of the most successful international instruments for the conservation of natural and cultural heritage sites. It's a unique reactive monitoring process, and this process highlights and contributes to the efficient monitoring of threats affecting the properties and to their mitigation. Can the PowerPoint be uploaded, please? I'm not seeing it. Aha, it comes. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Document 7 is a key document on statutory and global World Heritage conservation issues and contains these different parts. The introduction also provides information on the state of conservation reports submitted by states parties. And I'm very, very pleased to say that this year we have received 97% of all reports requested by the committee from the states parties. There's also some information on the 4th edition of the World Heritage Sites Managers Forum organized by the host country, China, in cooperation with the World Heritage Center and the World Heritage Leadership Program of IUCN and ICROM, together with ICOMOS, and just concluded its work. I think it was really a pleasure to watch the video of the forum with the theme of World Heritage Governance, being prepared to manage change and continuity. I think a very appropriate topic. I think we are really appreciate of the work the people at the forum have done this year. In part 1, document 7 proposes a follow-up to the very comprehensive and positive evaluation of the reactive monitoring process, which you had requested in 2016 and which was presented to you in the last session of the World Heritage Committee last year in Baku, 2 years ago in Baku in 2019. A matrix for the implementation of all the recommendations made by the 2 independent experts is being proposed for the adoption by the committee this year. In preparing this matrix, we took good care of the order of priorities set by the committee in 2019, with an initial focus on the recommendations relevant to communication, capacity building, this you have also just discussed, including for site managers and finance. The matrix can be found at the web address showing on the screen, which you have here in front of you. Next slide, please. The document also addresses one of the committee's concern of the previous years, which is the list of World Heritage in danger, and the need to identify ways to better assist states parties with properties on this list and with the development of costed action plans and desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger. It also looks more in depth at the properties which have been inscribed on this list for over 10 years. At the request of the committee, the World Heritage Center also launched a project with the aim to overcome the negative perception of the list of World Heritage in danger. A contractor will conduct a series of interviews in this regard, as well as an online survey to collect inputs from all stakeholders concerned of this convention. I would like to thank Norway for its generous support in this activity. Next slide, please. In part 2, this is dedicated to global conservation issues. More comprehensive information is provided on emergency situations in conflict areas. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for this minute of silence, because many of our rangers, etc., they face very difficult situations. And we provide also information on the tragic loss of human life resulting from these conflict situations, but also the devastating damage and the continuing threats facing culture and natural heritage in general. This part also provides detailed information on UNESCO's action to advocate and to mobilize the international community for the protection of the endangered cultural and natural sites. Next slide, please. The destructions over the past few years brought to the question of recovery and reconstruction sharply into focus. Since the adoption of the Warsaw Recommendation on the rehabilitation and reconstruction of cultural heritage, several activities have been taken place aiming at helping development practitioners, national and local authorities, and international organizations integrate culture into all phases of urban reconstruction and rehabilitation processes in urban crisis situations following conflict or natural disasters. This section of document 7 reviews most of the activities that took place over the past 2 years and provide links to relevant seminars, workshops, publications in this regard. I would like to especially thank our Category 2 Center in Bahrain for the workshop on reconstruction, and the Polish authorities for providing costs for the translation and assisting of the translation of the Warsaw Recommendation into Arabic, which has been published. Dear committee members, a recent global assessment made by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPERS, shows that nature is declining globally at rates unprecedented in human history. And the rate of species extinctions is accelerating. Considering this current biodiversity crisis and its impact on world heritage, Document 7 proposes also detailed insights into the contribution the World Heritage Convention can make into the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. This contribution is also highlighted in the World Heritage Review, number 96, which you see here on the screen, which we published in December 2020. The World Heritage Center and IUCN have been actively engaged in the development of the new GBF, that is Global Biodiversity Framework, in various capacities, including preparatory processes, workshop and policy submission, and participation in meetings with the members of the Bureau of this committee. And I would like to thank the Bureau members particularly for their participation. In part 2 of this document, we have also decided with the advisory bodies to address the issue of buffer zones, to remind all actors of the convention about the need to better design buffer zones in order to better fulfill their key objective to support the outstanding universal value of the property, and about the need to put in place effective protection and management regimes that prescribe and regulate development in buffer zones, foster specific land use practices, contribute to sustainable development, and overall ensure good cultural, environmental, and landscape connectivity within the wider setting. And I think you have all experiences relating to these matters with buffer zones, which were so often discussed at World Heritage Committee sessions. At several occasions, the committee expressed concern about the growing impacts of the extractive industries on World Heritage properties and urged all states parties and leading industry stakeholders to respect the so-called no-go commitment by not permitting extractive activities within World Heritage properties and to ensure that their outstanding universal value is not impacted. To date, 30 major extractive industries companies had subscribed to this commitment. The World Heritage Center, with the support of the advisory bodies, has continued dialogue with the banking and investment sector on the no-go commitment and to ensure that they are not financing projects that may negatively impact World Heritage properties. At the time, 13 companies have confirmed that they have some form of policy in place and submitted it to the World Heritage Center. In 2018, the World Heritage Center and the UNEP Finance Initiative Principle for Sustainable Insurance, in partnership with WWF, launched the first ever global insurance industry statement of commitment to protect the outstanding universal value of World Heritage properties, which has already been subscribed to by 17 major insurance companies. Dialogue is also ongoing with the International Hydropower Association, IHA, regrouping the major players of the hydropower industry in order to integrate a similar no-go commitment. Due to the unfortunately increasing number of cases recently, Document 7 provides useful information on the issues of fires, both in terms of its impact on World Heritage properties and how to manage it properly, as well as on the increasing pressures on urban heritage from the transformation of urban areas and their settings arising from rapid, inadequately planned development, including large-scale projects and cumulative incremental change, as well as mass tourism. Information on the production of an integrated guidance on impact assessments for World Heritage properties with the aim of providing a sound basis for improved decision-making in World Heritage management is also provided. Now, the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies felt important to highlight not only the vulnerability of our cherished heritage, but also the urgency to maintain the knowledge systems, including the traditional skills and practices that created this heritage, and how the absence of adequate skills or materials and inappropriate restoration may incrementally affect the outstanding universal value of some properties. Last but not least, Mr. Chairperson, we wanted to share with all states parties how the application of space technologies for World Heritage monitoring and conservation could prove extremely useful, notably in identifying threats to properties, particularly for those in situations of conflict and after natural disasters that may be inaccessible. And I think, Mr. Chair, we have made a lot of progress in this regard, especially during COVID times, and used new technologies also for monitoring of sites, and had also extensive collaboration with ESA in this regard. As you indicated, Mr. Chairperson, the draft decisions 44Com 7.1 and 7.2 will only be adopted at the end of the session to take on any further reflections into account which you may have during the discussions of state of conservation reports under items 7A and 7B. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Many thanks. I would like to give the floor to the advisory bodies for additional statements on this item. First, ECOMOS and ECROM joint statement, and then IUCN, please.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, as this is the first occasion on which ECOMOS has addressed this extended 44th session of the committee, we congratulate you and we extend our thanks to the host, the People's Republic of China. ICROM and ICOMOS have continued to analyse, advise and support the state of conservation of cultural and mixed properties on the World Heritage List. Some threats to attributes that sustain outstanding universal value can be directly managed through state party action. Management systems and management plans are critical tools, and the advisory bodies continue to assist through capacity building, technical advice and reviews. ICROM and ICOMOS are particularly encouraged by the emergence of the World Heritage Site Managers Forum as an important adjunct to World Heritage Committee sessions. All three advisory bodies have been pleased to deliver the highly successful and well-attended 4th World Heritage Site Managers Forum online on the theme of World Heritage Governance, being prepared to manage change and continuity. ICROM and ICOMOS have been active participants in the ongoing evaluation of the reactive monitoring process and have proactively contributed to prioritising implementation of high priority recommendations. The initiatives arising from the evaluation have great potential to improve the efficacy of reactive monitoring, but the proposed changes will require significant additional funding. ICROM and ICOMOS emphasise that, as acknowledged in the draft decision, inscription on the list of World Heritage in danger should marshal international support to help the state party to address the challenges faced by the property. ICROM and ICOMOS express concern that some state parties present listing in danger as a sanction or punishment, which is neither correct nor helpful to effective conservation. An important part of the process is development of a program to achieve a desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger, as provided in paragraph 183 of the operational guidelines. For some properties, this has proven problematic, owing to circumstances that have prevented reactive monitoring missions. ICOMOS has been pleased to collaborate with the World Heritage Centre in pilot projects at the ancient city of Damascus and at the old town of Ghadames, supporting the state parties in preparing DSOCR documentation and identifying corrective measures using innovative collaborative approaches without an in-country mission. ICROM and ICOMOS note the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic for reactive monitoring. One of the biggest challenges resulting from this crisis has been the lack of a committee session in 2020, which has left some threatened properties in limbo. Reactive monitoring missions have not occurred during the pandemic, but it has nevertheless been possible to evaluate the state of conservation based on information provided by state parties and other sources, to provide technical reviews and to formulate evidence-based advice. The operational guidelines do not require a mission before the committee can intervene and provide appropriate guidance, requests or other decisions. Technical reviews of proposed actions which may affect the outstanding universal value of inscribed properties have become increasingly important during the pandemic. These reviews rely on timely submission of comprehensive documentation by state parties. Early submission, in accordance with paragraph 172 of the operational guidelines, allows a collaborative approach and better outcomes. The majority of problems occur when a project proceeds without this prior consultation. The need for measures to protect the immediate settings of properties through buffer zones is becoming more and more critical because of increasing pressures from external threats, the widening use of heritage, environmental and strategic impact assessments, and the expectation that properties can and should support sustainable development, particularly for communities within buffer zones. Currently, only just over 60% of properties have defined buffer zones, and guidance to state parties on designing, establishing, managing, evaluating and monitoring effective buffer zones is currently limited. Best practice guidance is therefore urgently needed, and ICROM and ICOMOS would welcome involvement in its development if extra budgetary support is forthcoming. The expansion of interest by commercial companies in the no-go commitment and the associated expansion of protection to mixed sites is beginning to include cultural sites more specifically within this framework. ICROM and ICOMOS would be pleased to be involved in future dialogue as suggested in the draft decision. Intergenerational transfer of crafts and skill sets and the use of traditional fabric are essential to the maintenance of some World Heritage properties and preservation of their authenticity. As provided in the draft decision, ICROM and ICOMOS encourage existing and new research and training programs about traditional methods, technologies and materials to support the intergenerational transmission of traditional and contemporary restoration and maintenance skills, and to embed these in management systems. ICROM and ICOMOS have been pleased to contribute to recovery and reconstruction initiatives. In March 2021, ICROM and ICOMOS compiled and published analysis of case studies on recovery and restoration. And in 2020, ICOMOS also published a special issue of the International Journal of Cultural Property on the theme of authenticity and reconstruction. Cultural World Heritage properties in urban areas continue to be subject to development initiatives and projects that do not always take into account the protection of attributes which convey their outstanding universal value. Particular pressures arise from the transformation of urban areas and their settings through rapid, inadequately planned development. ICROM and ICOMOS highlight the opportunities presented by the 10th anniversary of the 2011 UNESCO recommendation on the historic urban landscape, HUL, and as proposed in the draft decision, would welcome the opportunity to support state parties in renewed efforts to promote its implementation through practical actions. ICROM, ICOMOS and IUCN have been collaborating in partnership with the World Heritage Centre on a new joint World Heritage Impact Assessment Guidance document within the framework of the World Heritage Leadership Program funded by the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment. The new guidance is at an advanced stage and will be available later in the year. The intent is that this guidance would apply to both natural and cultural properties and to small or large-scale projects, either within broader environmental impact assessments or used standalone. State parties are encouraged to use, promote, incorporate and integrate this new World Heritage Impact Assessment guidance within relevant national, regional and local planning and development consent frameworks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, IUCN, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As this is IUCN's first opportunity also to take the floor, allow me, Mr. Chair, to congratulate you on behalf of IUCN on your appointment to chair our session. And we wish to indicate our sincere thanks also to the host city of Fuji. The magnificent ceremony reminded us of how much we'd all like to be together in person for this session. IUCN takes this opportunity to restate its full commitment to work closely with UNESCO, states parties, and the other advisory bodies to comprehensively implement the recommendations arising from the evaluation of the reactive monitoring process. We welcome the prioritized, indicatively costed, and actionable matrix embraced by the committee through Decision 43.7 as our agreed framework to take action forward. Consistent with these recommendations, IUCN fully supports efforts to improve the perception of the World Heritage List in danger, specifically regarding the benefits of danger listing in alerting the international community to threats and as a catalyst to mobilize collaboration, technical and financial resources. We note the reactive monitoring evaluation reported 86% of surveyed respondents believe danger listing is beneficial or highly beneficial, and 60% considered it assisted in avoiding the loss of outstanding universal value. It is in this respect that we particularly welcome the financial support of Norway in improving the promotion, awareness and positioning of danger listing as a positive tool to address common threats. Mr. Chair, IUCN in this brief intervention would finally like to stress this critical moment in time for the World Heritage Convention to positively influence the shaping of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and the closely connected global agenda on combating climate change toward achieving the aspirations of the SDGs. The IUCN convened 2019 workshop referenced in document 44.7 articulated the unique contribution that World Heritage has the potential to make, linking nature and culture through the powerful concept of heritage. Recent analysis has shown an extensive overlap between cultural sites and key biodiversity areas, highlighting that this contribution extends beyond natural World Heritage sites. To this end, IUCN strongly supports the calls for greater investment in World Heritage as noted in the draft decision of document 44.com/7. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I would like to know whether there are any comments on the entire document 7 on the general state of conservation issues. Norway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since it's the first time Norway is taking the floor, allow me to thank China for hosting this session of the World Heritage Committee and to congratulate you with the chairmanship. We will also congratulate China on the very significant and highly important Fuji Declaration just presented. This committee meeting and the important decisions we are about to make on the state of conservation are the ultimate test of the convention. We are confident that the Secretariat, even under these difficult and extraordinary circumstances, has strictly followed the agreed rules of the convention. We hope that our fellow committee members share this understanding and take this into account when we are making decisions during this meeting. This year is a crucial year for biodiversity, during which new objectives and new commitments will be made for the coming decade. The world's most important natural areas have protection under our convention. The leadership role of World Heritage properties should not be underestimated. They should offer world-class examples of successful conservation practice. If the outstanding universal values underpinning World Heritage status are under threat, it must prompt decisive action from the global community to protect our most valuable and beautiful cultural icons and biodiverse places and gems on Earth. Over the 4 years as committee members, we have seen an increasing trend of weakening recommendations based on expert advice. This makes us deeply concerned for the future of the convention. We all have a responsibility and a task that may be difficult to grasp, sitting here in front of our screens in its entire seriousness. We therefore urge the committee to take responsible decisions founded on scientific evidence and the principles of the convention for the sake of the integrity and future of World Heritage properties. Finally, we are aware that some state parties would wish to contribute to the discussion on this important agenda item. And with the reference to Rule 22, we would kindly ask Chair to consider giving the floor to the Observer State Party of Switzerland before the state of conservation reports are being discussed. Would this be possible, Mr. Chair? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your very kind word and comment. Now, Ethiopia, please. Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want, first of all, to congratulate you and the People's Republic of China for the adoption of the Fuji Declaration, which we adopted earlier. I want to state here, as a developing country, that the declaration encompasses all our concerns as an African country, as a developing country, in meeting the challenges of the future. And truly, we thank China in particular for its solidarity with the peoples of Africa and with my country in particular, and the support you continue to give. Having said that, Mr. Chair, I want to make a couple of comments after the presentation made by the various representatives of the center and ECOMOS as well. One, we view from our point of view, there cannot be any protection of heritage without development. Without development, without people having food on their table, shelter over their heads, and with all the modern amenities that people enjoy in Europe, in America, in Australia, there cannot be heritage protection. It is as simple as that. There cannot be heritage preservation. Therefore, the issue before us is not the dichotomy or the opposition of cultural and natural heritage preservation and development. It's how we create a harmonious development that takes into account the imperatives of cultural and natural heritage protection. If we don't do that, it will be a losing battle. And I'm afraid that the approach we are taking does not go far enough in acknowledging the developmental needs and the needs of the people, first and foremost, that are at the heart, the communities that are at the heart of these heritage sites we want. Second comment, Mr. Chair, we fully agree that climate change and biodiversity is the biggest risk that we all face as a global community. Unfortunately, beyond lip service, that threat and that concern is not commensurate with the support and the international partnership and solidarity that is required. We have many initiatives that try to mitigate the effects of climate change on us, specifically poor countries, but the support is not there when it comes to concrete projects. We in Ethiopia, for example, are embarked on planting billions of trees. There is no international support for that kind of project. Yes, it's good to talk, good to make statements, it's good to make speeches and commitment, but when it comes to concrete things, transfer of technology and support to concrete projects, the support is lacking. So let's talk or let's walk the talk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your very kind words and support to China. And thank you for your comment. Now I'd like to give the floor to Spain. Spain, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Quiero felicitar también por la elaboración del documento que se nos presenta, pero sumarme también a algunas de las opiniones que se han dado, como las del ilustre embajador de Etiopía. Los estados de conservación, evidentemente, son importantes, velan por la integridad y por la preservación del patrimonio. A fin de cuentas, aunque a veces ponemos el esfuerzo en la inscripción, la inscripción es solamente un medio, el fin es la preservación del patrimonio, pero en un estado como el que hemos pasado, con los problemas que la pandemia ha generado, con las dificultades de enviar misiones que se han tenido y con las dificultades que algunos países, especialmente de África, están manifestando, creo que tendríamos que ser flexibles en la consideración y, como he dicho en mi intervención anterior, observar mucho las asimetrías. Evidentemente, las entradas, por ejemplo, de listas en peligro se interpretan a veces mal sin tener que interpretarse mal, porque una entrada en lista en peligro puede ser favorable para que permita más cooperación. Pero en cualquier caso, lo que quiero decir es que en los estados de conservación tenemos que ser exigentes, pero a la vez analizar cada una de las dificultades que cada país tiene, y a la vista cuando entramos en el informe general tenemos que felicitar, pero cuando entramos en particularidades que en países a los que se les ha dado un tiempo que no han podido cumplir, nosotros mismos no hemos podido tener una sesión el año pasado, tendremos que ser muy sensibles en este comité, señor presidente. Yo quería aprovechar esta ocasión para manifestar esta opinión de España, que observa con preocupación las dificultades que muchos países tienen, especialmente países en desarrollo, como ha destacado el embajador de Etiopía, y sobre todo los que están situados en África y algunos en Asia también, que por razones climatológicas han tenido fenómenos que les han afectado y a los que hemos de comprender. Tenemos que empezar a entender que de un lado estaría lo que son imposibilidades o dejaciones de algunos gobiernos con el patrimonio, pero de otro, muy importante, está el problema del cambio climático, que ya no es negable y que no afecta solo a un gobierno, sino a una acción colectiva de conciencia global que a veces uno se pregunta si la estamos ya teniendo o no la estamos teniendo. Y habrá que ser muy sensible con eso a la hora de contemplar los estados de cada país. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now, China, you have the floor.
好，主席先生，各位委员会亲爱的同事们，议题呢7是本届会议最重要的议题之一。过去2年呢，对所有缔约国都是史无前例的挑战，特别是对发展中国家的世界遗产保护更是带来了巨大的冲击。在这样的情况下，保护好、传承好、利用好世界遗产是我们的共同的责任。面对疫情常态化的形势，中方希望委员国、缔约国秘书处和咨询机构进行更加密切的合作，采取更加有力的措施，进一步保护、推进遗产保护工作，并对更需要帮助的国家和地区提供更多的支持。中方呢，希望委员会秉持公约的精神，本着科学公正的态度，根据不同地区、不同发展阶段世界遗产地的具体情况进行具体的分析，特别要处理好保护与发展的关系。我们必须坚持以人为本，做出更有利于全球世界遗产保护和促进可持续发展，有利于提高广大人民群众物质和文化生活水平的这样的决定。谢谢主席。
Thank you. Now, Australia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We didn't hear. Did you offer the floor to Australia?
Yes, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate that. The magnitude and longevity of climate change substantially differentiates it from other threats to OUV. Although climate change impacts may affect a property in locally specific ways, these threats originate from global processes. Australia agrees that climate change is a serious threat that needs an urgent and meaningful response. The current state of conservation and in danger list processes were not developed to address a threat of this nature. Around a quarter of World Heritage properties are currently in the state of conservation cycle. If we continue with our current processes, the number of properties on the in danger list will significantly increase and many will remain on the list indefinitely. We note that the next item, 7C, deals with the proposed updated climate change policy. However, we are concerned that this policy does not address the fundamental questions of how to address OUV in a changing climate. We will discuss this further in the next item, but would draw attention to the 3 questions at notice at paragraph 36 of the policy. Whether a property should be inscribed on the World Heritage List while knowing that its potential OUV may disappear due to climate change. Whether a property should be inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger or deleted from the list due to impacts beyond the sole control of the concerned state party. The reality that for some natural and cultural properties, it will be impossible to maintain the original OUV for which they were originally inscribed on the World Heritage List, even if effective adaptation and mitigation strategies are applied. And this may require an evolving assessment of OUV. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Bosnia, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Un instant, s'il vous plaît. Inspiré par les observations de mon collègue d'Éthiopie, je dois le dire, et par d'autres, mais surtout ces observations qui touchent à la vie de nos jours, à la vie au quotidien. Donc, nous parlons d'un côté de la protection des biens, et de l'autre côté, parfois, et même souvent, malheureusement, on oublie la vie qui est à côté de nous. Je viens d'un pays qui avait la guerre dans les années 90. Et je vois la différence entre... Je connais bien la différence qu'on avait dans la ville de Sarajevo, par exemple, même, à quelques dizaines de kilomètres dehors de ça. Il y avait deux mondes différents. Ici, quand on parle des biens culturels, quand on parle des biens que nous avons à protéger, on a l'impression parfois de parler aussi de deux mondes. D'abord, ce n'est pas juste, et je pense qu'il faut en tenir compte. C'est vrai que notre comité n'est pas une agence pour faire face aux problèmes de ce genre. Par contre, il est important de savoir et d'avoir un niveau d'empathie et de prendre en considération l'état des choses sur le terrain et de savoir et de dire comment est-ce que les gens qui sont appelés à protéger les biens dans leur pays, dans là où ils vivent, comment est-ce qu'ils peuvent y penser quand ils ont des problèmes de survie. Je pense, malgré le fait que nous ne sommes pas l'agence que nous parlons de la protection des biens culturels, mais nous faisons partie du système des Nations Unies et que notre but principal, que notre objectif principal, c'est de contribuer par notre travail à la paix. Et la paix signifie aussi l'amélioration de la vie des gens. Cela ne veut pas dire nous éloigner de notre travail principal. Vous avez plein d'histoires de ce genre. Vous avez l'histoire des vaccins. Vous voyez tous les jours manque d'empathie envers les gens en souffrance. On passe à côté pour voir des biens culturels. À quoi bon observer et admirer des biens culturels en voyant la souffrance? Et j'appelle tous ceux qui pensent pour moi, et j'espère qu'ils sont très nombreux, de prendre en considération cette situation. C'est pas le moment, c'est pas ce moment, c'est un état de choses qui s'empire avec le temps. C'est quelque chose qui me préoccupe énormément. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Now, Egypt, please. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Allow me first to express our appreciation for you, Mr. Chairman, and also for the delegation of People of the Republic of China for drafting the Fuji Declaration and for taking the necessary measures to ensure its smooth adoption. The declaration represents another milestone for the successful implementation of the 1972 Convention and reflects our commitment to preserve natural and cultural heritage. That's been said, Mr. Chairman, I would like also to thank Dr. Rosler, Director of the World Heritage Council, and also the advisory bodies for their presentations. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary, and it's an important opportunity to conduct a reflection on the issue raised under Item 7. These discussions shall be resumed during the upcoming year with the ad hoc working group. We all want to protect natural and cultural heritage. We are all united in this noble goal. However, we have to discuss openly our different perspectives, such as decision-making process, the expertise in the different regions, the mapping of advisor services, and also the balance between protecting heritage and sustainable development. All shall be discussed openly so that we embark on the upcoming 50 years of the convention on a more solid basis. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Brazil, please. You have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Gracias por darnos la palabra nuevamente para comentar en este importante micrófono, en este importante ítem de la agenda. Señor presidente, primero Brasil quiere asociarse a aquellos que han congratulado a China por la adopción de la Declaración de Fuji, que es un documento de la mayor importancia y que nos parece que ha conseguido de una forma muy equilibrada manifestar todas nuestras preocupaciones. Señor presidente, quiero asociarme a lo que ha sido dicho aquí por mis compañeros de Etiopía, España y China, sobre todo en relación a las dificultades que se presentan en este año particular, atacados, que hemos sido todos afectados por el COVID-19, pero al mismo tiempo queremos traer a discusión el tema de la inexistencia, a nuestro ver, de una dicotomía real entre preservación y desarrollo. A nuestro ver, el desarrollo y cooperación tienen que caminar juntos para que puedan realmente ser posible mantener. No es posible mantener la preservación o preservar sin tener el desarrollo, como decía el distinguido delegado de Etiopía, y al mismo tiempo la preservación ayuda en el proceso de dominio y de desarrollo. En este sentido, señor presidente, queremos que este comité, y solamente en este caso, y porque hemos estado viviendo un momento muy particular en los últimos 2 años, tengamos claro que en el momento de tomar decisiones importantes como vamos a tomar, llevemos en consideración la situación de la pandemia y la situación en que se encuentran todos los países en general, que han tenido dificultades presupuestarias, de dinero y de otra índole, en el sentido de que evitemos siempre que posible y viendo caso a caso los archivos que vamos a considerar, evitar tomar medidas extremas de las cuales sea después muy difícil revertir, y nos parece que esto es una sensibilidad que este comité tiene que mostrar durante esta reunión del comité. Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you. Now, Guatemala, please. You have the floor.
Thank you. Muchas gracias de nuevo, señor presidente, por darme la palabra. Y también quisiera agradecerle y felicitarle por el trabajo que su país y el gobierno de China ha trabajado en la declaración de Fuzhou. Realmente es una declaración muy inclusiva, es una declaración de intenciones y es una declaración que nos ata a todos amigablemente a llevar a cabo ciertos procesos y ciertos cambios de actualización y de recordar ciertos procesos. Y como se ha mencionado en otros puntos y otros ilustres delegados, también el y el mantener presente la representación regional. Y al respecto, señor presidente, si me lo permite, quisiera también recordar que América Latina también debería estar incluida dentro de la declaración de Fuzhou en cuanto a la representación regional, como muy bien destacó al principio la excelentísima directora Rosler, sobre la sesión anterior y sobre las nominaciones de la sesión anterior, solamente hubo un sitio de América Latina. Entonces estamos totalmente de acuerdo con la propuesta y la postura del ilustre delegado de Etiopía. Y al mismo tiempo, sobre el punto 7, sobre este punto tan delicado y tan importante a la vez, queremos resaltar y recordar y felicitar y agradecer a los órganos evaluadores, al Centro de Patrimonio Mundial, por el excelente trabajo que durante estos ya 50 años han realizado para reforzar, para reiterar y para darle credibilidad a la convención. Esta es una convención, tenemos que recordar, es una convención, una de las más valiosas y una de las más incluyentes de todo el sistema de Naciones Unidas. Y por lo tanto, señor presidente, si me lo permite, quisiera recordar también, ya que esta es una convención muy incluyente, el que justamente se incluya y se mantenga presente la representatividad regional. Al mismo tiempo, analizar las situaciones que actualmente como sociedad global estamos viviendo. El mundo está cambiando, el mundo está siendo afectado por el cambio climático, por muchos otros temas. Entonces, tenemos que analizar cómo aplicamos esta solidez de la convención a las sociedades actuales. Habemos muchos países que tenemos dificultades financieras para mantener y para estas gestiones internas. Tenemos cambio climático que nos afecta a todos. Guatemala ha sido uno de los países que ha sido afectado en los últimos 2 años y nuestros sitios de patrimonio cultural de la humanidad también. Entonces, apreciamos mucho la discusión de este punto y asimismo valoramos mucho el hecho que como comunidad internacional social analicemos y veamos qué pasos, qué necesitamos actualizar y mejorar de nuestra convención. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Russia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, our delegation is a relative newcomer to the Committee on World Heritage. Over the last years, we were observers, and it wasn't easy for us to grasp all the details of the relationship and cooperation within the framework of the committee. Now that we are full-fledged members, we see that we see all these difficulties that the committee is facing because of many problems, and not only the consequences of the pandemic of COVID-19, but also of some problems that look like existential. And it was mentioned by many speakers before me, the need to strike a balance between the conservation of World Heritage properties and the development, or even not only the development, but the need to create normal living conditions for the people who live there and are related somehow to the World Heritage properties, being that natural or cultural. So what is the way to strike this balance? I think, first of all, we should think about striking the balance between the recommendations of the advisory bodies, which are very important to fulfill for every state party, and also the measures that the committee is, the decisions that the committee is adopting, which could be really, could have far-reaching consequences. And I think under these difficult circumstances, all of us are finding ourselves. I agree with the ambassador of Brazil, who mentioned the need to try to see very carefully whether the drastic or irreversible decisions should be taken. I agree with what some of the advisory representatives of advisory bodies said about the need to overcome the negative perception of a danger list. But we have also to see it from another angle, the angle of the state parties, for whom sometimes danger list is a challenge and is not really helpful for the conservation of properties, but is perceived as a sort of punishment. We therefore should try to refrain from these extreme decisions, trying first of all to encourage the member states to take necessary measures for the sake of conservation where the properties are really in danger or face some serious problems. And on the other hand, we should see clearly where these measures could be really helpful for the conservation, or on the contrary, they may happen to be counterproductive. I think the improvement of the understanding and close cooperation between the advisory bodies and the members of the committee is a key for the improvement of our general cooperation for the sake of World Heritage. The experience of our country for the last years suggests that a close dialogue with advisory bodies, the joint search for reasonable and effective solutions of the problems which are inevitably exist in this area is the best way to achieve positive results and to ensure the effective conservation of World Heritage properties. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to South Africa. South Africa, please. Maybe the microphone is muted.
Thank you, Excellency.
It's okay.
Yeah, since South Africa is taking the floor for the first time, Chairperson, South Africa would like to congratulate China for the stunning opening yesterday and appreciates your leadership during this particular session. What we want to raise or note as South Africa Chair, that there's a delicate balance that we need to strike amongst countries, given the economic divide that continues to threaten the livelihoods of the African countries. We therefore feel that the issues of conservation vis-a-vis the development agenda of countries needs to be taken into cognizance. And I think the situation has also been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And therefore, how do we build back better in terms of ensuring that the natural resources becomes the core elements for building better? And I think, Chair, given an opportunity that the African states combine, needs to look at those issues that we thought the committee should look at when looking at various submissions by the Africa region. I thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Nigeria, please.
Thank you, the chairperson of this 44th extended session. I want to, since this is the first time Nigeria, to congratulate you on the way you have session and to learn to what other state concerning the state of conservation reports for properties on the World Health. We already know what is going on globally. The pandemic, which has led to loss of jobs and lives, also affected our heritage, both natural. So we are our views with that of others that looking at the state of conservation for properties on the World Heritage and even on the World Heritage list, we should look at development and the vis-a-vis property, taking into cognizance that the community, the local people are supposed to benefit from heritage sites. So align our views that the World Heritage Sites to humanity and must be protected. Have to look at the communities, their views, and the economic situation is affecting countries apart from Africa, regions of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more comments from the committee members? No more. Dear colleagues, I'd like to seek the permission of the committee to give the floor to two observers. One is Switzerland, another is Forum on Indigenous People. Now, any objection? Okay, Switzerland, you have 2 minutes comment. You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci de nous donner la parole. Nous remercions aussi la Chine pour l'organisation de cette réunion. Je prononce cette intervention conjointe au nom de la Colombie, des Pays-Bas, de la Suède et évidemment de la Suisse. Les effets de la crise environnementale sont de plus en plus évidents sur notre planète. Les changements climatiques et la crise de la biodiversité, nous avons vu, impactent notre monde de façon massive, touchant également les biens du patrimoine mondial. Notre responsabilité commune de la préservation de cet héritage que nous partageons est accrue. À l'heure d'entamer les travaux d'examen des rapports d'état de conservation, nous souhaitons en amont des discussions rappeler aux membres du comité l'impératif d'agir sur la base des connaissances scientifiques et techniques et de ne surtout pas céder à des pressions particulières. Les intérêts nationaux sont compréhensibles, mais ne doivent pas peser plus que l'intérêt du patrimoine mondial et surtout pas plus que la crédibilité de la liste. Nous prions ainsi le comité d'agir selon les plus hauts standards éthiques, comme l'a demandé notre Assemblée générale. Nous ne rappelons pas ça à la légère. La dernière Assemblée générale de la Convention a fait une constatation grave. Certaines pratiques et méthodes du travail du comité menacent la crédibilité du système du patrimoine mondial. La plus flagrante en est la tendance à s'écarter de manière récurrente de l'avis des experts et à ignorer les dispositions des orientations. Ce sont les principes d'objectivité et d'impartialité, principes fondamentaux de cette convention, qui sont en jeu ici. Monsieur le Président, le monde nous regarde. Il est temps que le comité fasse primer les intérêts mondiaux sur les intérêts nationaux. Nous avons comme mandat d'être exemplaires pour tous les acteurs gouvernementaux, professionnels, les intervenants de la société civile, les jeunes qui travaillent incessamment pour la conservation et la gestion du patrimoine mondial et du patrimoine en général. Nous comptons sur vous, distingués membres de ce comité, pour donner le meilleur exemple et inspirer la confiance dans la Convention du patrimoine mondial, en évitant, s'il vous plaît, de répéter les erreurs du passé. Nous vous remercions, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. It's very accurate. 2 minutes. Now I give the floor to Forum on Indigenous People. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on World Heritage wish to congratulate you on your position and is confident that you will be able to manage this very well. So the IIPFWH, which is the forum, want to express our serious concern that despite recent improvements to the operational guidelines encouraging respect for Indigenous peoples and human rights, the management of many World Heritage sites continues to be marked by a lack of respect for Indigenous peoples' relationship to the land and the lack of protection of our traditional livelihoods and cultural heritage. Human rights violations against Indigenous peoples continue to occur unabated in many sites. The World Heritage Convention is in many ways enabling and sometimes even driving these violations. In 2019, due to intense media pressure, WWF commissioned an independent review into grave human rights violations against Indigenous peoples by eco-guards in and around protected areas supported by WWF, including instances of murder, rape, torture, physical beatings, unlawful arrests and detention, and multiple other types of abuse and intimidation. Notable is the high proportion of World Heritage sites among the 8 protected areas that are implicated. 5 of them are listed as World Heritage sites and another 2 are on the tentative list. The implicated World Heritage sites are Salonga, Lubeki, Chitwan and Kazaranga National Parks and Dzanga Shanghai Protected Area. The independent study makes clear that the underlying cause of the human rights abuses against Indigenous peoples is a systematic denial of our customary rights to access and use our ancestral lands, territories and resources. Regrettably, the decisions of the World Heritage Committee, the advisory bodies and UNESCO have in many ways contributed to this denial and may have directly contributed to some of the violations described in the study, for instance, by encouraging voluntary relocations of Indigenous peoples or by identifying traditional resource as a threat. A contributing factor is also the fact that all of the implicated World Heritage sites are listed as purely natural sites without an adequate recognition of Indigenous peoples' relationship to the land in the OUV and in disregard of our holistic view of our heritage. We therefore call on the committee to stop labelling World Heritage sites in Indigenous peoples' territories as pure natural sites and to make changes to the wording of the natural criteria so that the indissoluble bond between Indigenous peoples and their lands can be fully and consistently recognised in all sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see another observer asking for the floor. I think with the permission of the committee, I give the World Heritage Watch 2 minutes comment. Now you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. May we also congratulate the People's Republic of China and also the World Heritage Center under the leadership of Dr. Rösler for the successful organization of the 44th session of the committee under these extremely difficult conditions. Now we have observed that in 69 properties under examination by 44Com, the draft decision states that the state parties in question have not sufficiently followed their obligations under paragraph 172 of the operational guidelines. We feel this is a major failure. We also observe that the committee will decide on the inscription of no less than 45 properties on the World Heritage List, taking a full 4 days of its agenda. While not even all of the properties on the list of World Heritage in danger, and other sites under imminent threat of destruction, such as the Acropolis of Athens and the Coronian Spit, will not even be on the agenda. It is urgent that the committee revise its priorities, away from inscribing ever more sites while being unable to sufficiently address the problems of sites already under its tutelage. It is also urgent to establish mechanism to ensure that as much as possible that states parties cannot continue unhindered a strategy to ignore or even defy their obligations under the convention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, I remind you that this item remains open and that both draft decisions 7.1 and 7.2 will be examined at a later stage of our session, once we have concluded the examination of items 7A and 7B. Thank you very much. We come to the end of our meeting today. We will meet tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. Paris time. And for Bureau members, we will meet at 11 a.m. Thank you very much for your
announcements from Paris to be made.
Thank you very much for your hard work. And I think that the announcement from Paris,
Yes.
The Deputy Director, yeah, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I just wanted to announce that tomorrow, 18th July, we have two side events. There is a side event on Maritime Silk Road Heritage Research and Conservation, organized by the host country, National Cultural Heritage Administration of China. This is from 15:30 to 17 Beijing time, or 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Paris time. The second side event is on World Heritage with Multiple Memories, the role of heritage interpretation, organized by the C2C WHI-PIC. This is from 15 to 16 hours Beijing time, or 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Paris time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, please enjoy the rest of your day. Now we conclude today's meeting. Thank you.